Have you or someone you know been diagnosed with mesothelioma? You probably have many questions, such as, what should I do? Where can I get more information? RGT4Law.com can answer those questions and help you get the money you deserve. Call 855-RGT4Law or visit RGT4Law.com and fill out the simple form for a free consultation. Robert Taylor, RG Taylor II, PC and Associates, Houston, Texas.
This is the MLW Radio Network.
From the territories to Titan Towers to TNA and all points in between, he's seen and done it all. And now he's here to share the real story behind wrestling's biggest moments, controversies, and characters. The MLW Radio Network presents Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, I've had better weeks, man. It's been a rough week.
Well, let's knock some stuff out, and then we'll talk about what you're talking about. I hate to just jump right into it, but this is going to be kind of weird. First of all, let me tell you, we're looking forward to being in Orlando next week. We've got our live show coming up at Back Booth. If for whatever reason you're not going to be able to make the show and you're looking to dump your tickets, please tweet us. We'd love to go ahead and retweet your tickets for sale, because we are getting lots of requests for this show. It is completely sold out, but there may be some last minute availability just through our little network of listeners here when someone's travel plans change. So if that's happened for you, tweet Bruce or I, and we will go ahead and retweet that and get that information out. He is at Bruce Prichard. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we would love to help you unload those tickets to another listener who would like to go. Tickets are still on sale when we're coming to St. Louis. We're coming on Father's Day. It's June 18th, right before WWE presents Money in the Bank in St. Louis. You can come on down and check us out. We've got early bird prices. It's even cheaper than our Orlando show. You don't want to miss out. Go to notarib.com. Tickets are moving fast. We've already had to expand the VIP. This is the last expansion we can do, but the first one sold out already. So I know these last handful of VIPs are going to go fast. If you want to go ahead and go, put in your order now. There's lots of folks who are locked out of Orlando who regret putting it off. Don't be in that same spot in St. Louis. We're not doing the show until June 18th. Really process this. You're listening probably on March 24th. Man, it's going to sell out a long time before June. Go to notarib.com. Want to also go ahead and mention that great friend of the show, Mr. Justin Roberts, has his book available now on Amazon. They're already shipping this. They weren't going to ship it until next week. You can go ahead and get your copy early. And if you're going to see him in Orlando, he'll love to sign that book for you. Check him out over at Amazon.com. Look for his book. You're going to love it. You never know where he's going to show up in Orlando. All right, so before we get on to some bad news and then what we're really here for this week, WrestleMania 13, we want to go ahead and put a bow on Roddy Piper. One of our most well-received episodes so far. I had a little heat with Bruce for not editing out everything at the end, but I thought it was real, and I thought that's what you guys wanted to hear. We gave it to you, and you guys responded. Lots of folks are saying that was our very best show so far. Bruce, what's been your feedback so far?
Overall, it's been positive, with the exception of people sending me a deluge of Roddy's video of his hit single, I'm Your Man, which I actually watched a few times over. Didn't have anything to do with that. That was kind of during one of Roddy's in-between times in the wrestling business. But I also had some nice correspondence back and forth with Kitty Toombs, Roddy's widow, who seemed to like the show, was happy that we did it, and felt that we did Hot Rod justice.
Well, that's great to hear, man. Whenever somebody who was close with the family and part of the family and the man's partner in life gives you the stamp of approval, what else can we ask for? If you haven't already, go check it out. More than 400,000 of you have already checked out our Roddy Piper episode. We'd love to have you take a peek and tweet us. Let us know what you think about the show. But before we get to WrestleMania 13, I hate to be a downer, but we have to go ahead and address some tragic news this week. I don't know how to make a weird, funny, awkward transition here, Bruce, so I'll let you just kind of take over from here.
Well, we lost someone very near and dear to me and near and dear to the wrestling community. Jim Ross's wife, Jan Ross, passed this week in a very unfortunate accident that took place on Monday night. She was hit from behind on her Vespa scooter on her way back from the gym, and she passed on Wednesday evening. And Jan is Jim Ross's biggest cheerleader, man, and I considered her a great friend, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman, and I think Jim kind of summed it up best when he said he lost an angel. And Jan was just that. She was an absolute angel. And I'm all cried out. I probably got some more left in me. But, send your prayers out to Jim Ross. He needs them right now. And he's going through a really rough time. She was his everything, and he was her everything. And it's just not an easy time right now for Jim, and just give him your love, man. Give him your prayers, and he's going to be out. He's going to make it out to WrestleMania. He wants to be around family and friends. So if you see him out there at one of his shows, we're going to be at both of his shows. I'm going to make both of his shows Saturday and Sunday. Just give him some love, man. And our hearts are hurting this week.
Follow JR on Twitter if you haven't already, and send him a tweet sending your condolences. He needs all the love and help and support he can get right now. I can't imagine what that's like. I only met Jan a handful of times in the last few years, but she was always nice to me when she didn't have to be. And I'm sure JR would love to hear from you. He is on Twitter at JR'sBBQ. And as Bruce mentioned, he's going to be participating in Jim Ross's shows this weekend, or next weekend, rather, at WrestleMania. He has two shows, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. So if you'd hope to come see us, and we're sold out at Back Booth, and you just can't do that, go check out JR and Bruce. It's over at ticketfly.com. Just type in Jim Ross, and you'll see two options there, one Saturday and one Sunday. Cornette, Shivani, Bruce Prichard, Jim Ross. If that's not a good time, I don't know what is. Go to ticketfly.com and come see JR. He needs our support. There was maybe a little bit of a debate as to whether or not he would still do these shows, but we are his wrestling family, and that's what this is, a big extended family, and he needs us right now. So let's send some prayers and love to JR. And, normally we try to make a slick transition into a commercial here, guys. It just feels like it'd be in poor taste. We're going to take a break and pay the bills, and we'll be back and talk about WrestleMania 13 on the other side.
Have you or a loved one been affected by mesothelioma? You may not have to file a lawsuit to get a recovery. Go to rgtforlaw.com and fill out the easy form for more information. Robert Taylor, RG Taylor II, PC and Associates, Houston, Texas.
All right, so let's get to it. What everybody wanted to hear this week, overwhelming in our poll this week, and we did a string of WrestleManias this time. We did 10, 11, 12, and 13, and it seems like we saved the best for last. An overwhelming majority of you, like 40%, wanted to hear the story of WrestleMania 13. Bruce, real quick, off the top of your head, what's the first thing that comes to mind about WrestleMania 13?
Brett Austin. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, because to me that was the turning point for Steve and just took him over the edge.
Yeah, it's maybe my favorite match ever. It's certainly on the list. I can't think of a match that I like any better. I watched it again this week for the first time this year. I would say in a long time, but I know for sure I watched it last year. And it's still just as fun now as it was back then. Back then being March 23rd, 1997. Actually taping this on Thursday, March 23rd right now. So as we're talking, Bruce, it was 20 years ago today. How fucking old do you feel?
Easy now, Tiger. Damn, I was a young man. Scary, isn't it?
Maybe you were 20 years ago, but you're not now, you old fucker.
I was a vice president of talent relations at that time. 20 years ago.
So
scary.
Is that code to mess with the divas? I mean, that's what that really is, right?
What?
Okay, roll tide. So this happened at the Rosemont Horizon, and we got lots of tweets asking, why didn't you guys run the United Center? So catch everybody up. Why would the Rosemont Horizon be the spot?
Well, the Rosemont Horizon, first of all, for performing talent, wrestling talent, man, one of the greatest spots anywhere in the world. It was fun to work. The atmosphere was great. The crowds were great. But from a business standpoint, it was a better deal. It was just a much better deal. The deal at the United Center was new and very expensive. And we just had a much better deal at Rosemont.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning. I didn't realize that I was in the Rosemont Horizon. I went to a pay-per-view last year, right after WrestleMania. I guess it was late April. And it was at the Allstate Arena. And I didn't realize that that was the old Rosemont Horizon, kind of the same thing, just a different name. Until I looked up and saw the wood ceiling. And I remember hearing Steve Austin talk about that building in particular was one of, if not his absolute favorite place to wrestle, maybe behind the Garden, because he loved the way the sound would bounce off of that wood ceiling. He said it sounded like the damn crowd was coming in on top of you, and he just loved it. So when I look up and I saw the wood planks, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I think that's where Brett and Austin went up and down the stairs over there with that drunk guy in the leather jacket.
Exactly. And that's so true, because the acoustics there, it's Rosemont Horizon, the old Hershey Auditorium, the old Hershey Arena was another one that was like that, where you felt like everything was on top of you and the acoustics were great. But I still refer to the buildings as the names that I remember when I ran them. Not, they change names every 3 years. It seems like it'll always be the Rosemont Horizon to me.
And the Rosemont Horizon, for those of you who wonder, was built in May of 1980 and holds about 18,000 folks for wrestling. The United Center holds about 20,000, 21,000 for basketball. So just as a frame of reference, and when Bruce was saying it was new, it opened in August of 94, so not too terribly long before here. I'm curious about the selection process of Chicago. Because when you look at WrestleMania and how it had kind of bounced around, you guys really tried something different with 9 out in Vegas. You came back home for 10 in New York. 11 was also in the Northeast and Connecticut. But then we go back to the West Coast for California for 12. And now we're in Chicago for 13. And Chicago had been one of those early WrestleManias where we're in 3 places at the same time. But they hadn't yet gotten a major WrestleMania card like this. And I find that a little interesting as being what is a historically great wrestling town and, the 3rd largest city in America. What took so long for Chicago to get WrestleMania, and why was this the right one?
Well, it got WrestleMania 2, so that counts. I think Vince overall liked the Northeast WrestleManias because of the time of the day. You had more time to prepare. He liked the evening feel. He's not real fond of those West Coast live events. He likes more time to prepare, and he likes the East Coast. That's just a preference. But Chicago, as you said, number 3 market, great wrestling town, a lot of history. And it was a market that we could go in and frankly, you could charge just about anything that you wanted there, and you would sell the damn thing out and do great business no matter what you did.
Well, let's talk about that because you guys didn't sell it out. And I found that a little interesting, I guess, because I kind of expected this to be a sellout given the strength, if nothing else, of the Royal Rumble. Now, if you haven't heard it, you should go listen to it. Like 500,000 of you have so far. The Royal Rumble 97 was interesting to me for a lot of reasons, mostly from a business aspect and how you guys managed to pull together over 40,000 people there, 48,000 paid actually. Catch me up. Why do you think this was the first WrestleMania that wasn't a sellout?
I couldn't tell you that. I really don't know. It's probably, it may have been the attraction or lack thereof. We changed midway with Shawn Michaels and everything, losing his smile and that whole, there was just a shift. It was at a time where we were really in a rebuilding process. We were at a time where we had changed the structure of contracts from going to the downside guarantee contracts. So it was a rebuilding period. And you kind of bite the bullet sometimes, and maybe you take less now to make more later.
Well, the event was attended by 18,197 folks. They paid a grand total of $837,150 at the gate, and it drew a .77 buy rate. Of those 18,000 and change folks, only 16,467 paid. And overall, it was met with mixed reviews, to say the least. It was presented by PlayStation, which is interesting because it was just a PlayStation back then. So you gamers listening, this is way before the PS4. This is Crash Bandicoot days. One of the things I've always been intrigued by, and only on this show do we talk about silly shit like this. What's the purpose of the fucking PlayStation blimp?
Advertising. It was having, it's like the Goodyear blimp over a football stadium, but it was in the arena. You know, this was drones before drones were cool. We actually had a pilot in the arena with a remote control that flew the blimp around the arena. So it was another advertising avenue to sell the blimp and be able to have the damn thing fly across the arena. Plus we had a camera in it, so you had the blimp cam to get that big overview from the blimp. So we, football games weren't the only ones that had blimps. We had our own blimp.
Whose idea was this fucking blimp? Who booked this shit?
I believe it was Bob Collins. I love the blimp, man. Come on. I liked it when we actually had a real one day, man, when we talk about the real blimp that we had, that we flew all over the country. Great story about me, Pat Patterson, and Stephanie McMahon on the blimp that I'll tell you one day.
When will that come up?
That's going to come up. Wow, shit. Didn't we talk about it at Lex Express? That might have been that time frame. But we had a blimp, man. We had a blimp that traveled the country, and it had a pilot and a co-pilot, and you could travel maybe one more person in some gear and stuff. It was a weight limit. And they brought it to Connecticut one time, and we were all out at Westchester Airport, and they were going to give us a ride. And it was me and Stephanie and Pat Patterson. Stephanie was in high school still, I think. But we ran out to the blimp, and we got on, and when I got on, the blimp just sank to the ground, and they wouldn't lift off because it had too much weight. And they made me get off the blimp so Pat and Stephanie could go fly in the blimp. But it worked out because they came back and they took me up by myself, so it was nice.
Next week, we'll cover the story of when Bruce was sent to Ohio Valley Wrestling to lose weight.
There's pictures of me, and I want to say Vince was taking the damn picture of me running from the blimp with my hands over my head. He's like, "What the hell?" I go, "I'm too fat. I'm too fat." They won't let me ride the blimp.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
And
they left me. And they left me when I went up for my ride by myself. Everybody left me, bastards. So anyway, that's my blimp story. Sad Bruce, the fat kid, and they left him.
So who was on the blimp? Run through that again.
Okay. We went out to ride the blimp so that me, Pat, and Stephanie could ride the blimp.
I need to hear Pat Patterson telling you to get off the blimp.
You're too fat. Get off the blimp, Bruce. Out of pay. So we go up. Fuck you.
And so you're running out with your hands up. I'm too fat. I'm too fat. You look over at Vince taking a picture, and he's saying,
"God damn, pal. I told you to lose weight." Yeah, it was embarrassing as fuck all.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, let's go back to 1997, the March 10th edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Even though arena business remained strong for the WWF, as January was their best month at the gate, going back at least 5 or 6 years, there seems to be a feeling of a lack of momentum going into this show, coupled with a lackluster lineup for what traditionally is the biggest wrestling event of the year in North America. Now, I know how you feel about our great friend of the show, Mr. Dave Meltzer.
He's not my friend.
Well, he was recently spotted at a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. That's Miller time. At a Pro Wrestling Guerrilla show in California, posing with one of our great listeners who was sporting a T-shirt that says, "I'm a Bruce Prichard guy." So I feel like we should at least, love on him a little bit for being a good sport. But you have to agree with this, that January was a strong month for the WWF, January 97. But then for whatever reason, WrestleMania was just missing it. And that's what we're going to dig into here, is kind of how we got there. And the big themes we're going to talk about, of course, are the tremendous match that we've already mentioned, Bret Hart and Steve Austin. Obviously, the Shawn Michaels situation with him losing his smile, taking time off. The Monday Night Wars are really getting cranked up here. This is The Rock's first WrestleMania. This is Triple H's first where he's not getting squashed by the Ultimate Warrior. Ken Shamrock's here. You could argue this is the genesis of the Attitude Era, this whole time frame here, this 30 days or so. And we're just going to kind of set the stage and pick up where we left off our Royal Rumble episode. As a reminder, again, they blew it out at that show, which is available in the archives. 48,000 paid there, 60,000 total in attendance. They did the big schmoz in the Royal Rumble where technically Steve Austin won, but they came back in February in Chattanooga and did a Final Four concept with the Undertaker, Vader, and Bret Hart joining Steve Austin. And then, of course, we know how we got there. In the championship match at Royal Rumble, of course, Shawn Michaels, the hometown boy, recaptured the world title from Psycho Sid. And this seems as if at this point, so let's kind of pick it up here. And for those of you who don't remember our Royal Rumble show, which for the third time now I'm going to mention is available in the archives, Shawn was sick that night, and Sid had just been in a car wreck, but somehow they put together like a 14-minute match in the main event in Shawn's hometown. Now he's the champ again. It's the boyhood dream. He finally made good in his hometown and beat the big nasty heel. That was originally supposed to be Vader, also available in the archives. But at that point, the plan has to be the rematch from WrestleMania 12, right, Bruce? I mean, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Part 2 seems so natural, does it not?
Well, I think it seemed natural maybe to some people, but the idea was to try and get Austin into that mix, but we hadn't made the switch with Austin yet. So it was a kabuki-ish deal because you had Shawn, babyface, champion in January. You had Austin coming up as a red-hot heel, but he was a red-hot heel that was a popular, the most popular fucking heel on the card. And you got Bret was getting there too. I mean, Bret was the man as well, and Bret was getting that heel edge. The funny thing about it is Bret didn't think he was a heel. Bret didn't think that the shit he was doing and saying was heelish. He thought everybody would see it his way.
As a shoot.
But it was, once I think he felt it big time at WrestleMania with Steve, and he felt it on the build with Steve that, they're turning on me. But he felt that only the United States audience was turning on him. And they were. I mean, but the Canadian audience, man, they stayed true to their Canadian hero. So it was a weird time. And you look at the guys on the card. You look at the talent roster on that card from, The Rock and Triple H. Steve was just coming into his own at that time.
Sid was on top, and Sid was doing really well in his role. I mean, going back to the Survivor Series, which I can't wait to cover with you one day, was really his coming out party, at least for me. He was phenomenal there. Vader was still booked as a top guy even the month before in the main event, being one of the last ones at the Royal Rumble too, having a match at the Royal Rumble against the Undertaker. So he's still got really, really good spots. And so coming out of the Royal Rumble, you've kind of got 6 top guys, I guess you'd say. Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, Psycho Sid, Vader, and of course the Undertaker. And how you shuffle the deck and get to WrestleMania is what we're going to get into. The night after the Royal Rumble, Gorilla Monsoon makes the announcement that they're going to do this 4-way. And at that point, it's to determine who is going to get the title shot, because Shawn is still the champion. Now let's fast forward. Lowell, Massachusetts, the day before Valentine's Day, February 13th, 1997, Vince McMahon hosts an in-ring segment. He invites the world champion into the ring, Mr. Shawn Michaels, and he surrenders the world championship to WWF President Gorilla Monsoon, citing a knee injury. And he says that a doctor has told him he may never wrestle again. And the crowd, being in Massachusetts, starts to turn on him a little bit. And let's remember, they booed the shit out of him at Madison Square Garden in November. And here they're chanting, "We want Sid." And Sid was supposed to scheduled to take on Shawn on this broadcast. So I'm sure a lot of the fans were thinking this is an angle. But he really is saying he's going to go home. And he's saying that he didn't feel like he could say no during his championship reign, and he did everything that was asked of him, from the heavy travel to the public appearances. But somewhere along the line, he lost his smile. And he said this past year was the best year of his life, thanked the fans for their support, and then took a lap around the ring to shake and slap hands. And then Gorilla Monsoon announced that the winner of the Final Four match that Sunday in Chattanooga at the Final Four In Your House pay-per-view would become the new champion, and that Sid would get a title shot on the following edition of Monday Night Raw. So the rumor and innuendo here is, according to the Observer, that you guys only had about 24 hours heads up that Shawn was dropping the belt. So we've talked about this kind of in passing. When did you know for sure Shawn's dropping the belt? We got to change everything.
Day of. Lowell Mask that morning wanted to talk to Shawn. Vince wanted to talk to Shawn in person.
So he gets to the building early?
Well, I mean, it was before the meeting, yeah.
And so
came in and met and said he couldn't do it. He would hand the belt over and was going home. And that was it. So we had talked about it the night before. We had a lot of what if scenarios. But Vince wanted to look him eye to eye and talk to him, see where the hell he was, see what the fuck was going on.
Wait. You're skipping around. What did you talk about the night before if he told you day of?
That we knew he had gone and seen the doctor and that he didn't feel that he could continue. But we didn't know. There's so many times when, you call it you've been Vinced. When you show up and you've got something in your head and you think things are going to go one way, and you get in and you talk to Vince and you walk out and you do completely the opposite of what you thought you were going to do when you walked in there. And we call that you've been Vinced. So we thought that, this is Shawn, it's something else is going on. He had this appointment with the doctor. It's not good news, but we'll talk to him when he gets to the building on Monday. So from our vantage point, we're like, okay, this is, what if, we got to drop the title? What if he's hurt? He can't go. What are we going to do? But Vince was confident that wouldn't be the case. Vince was confident that he would talk to Shawn, and by God, everything would be fine in the world. So it wasn't. And he came out, and Shawn's not going to work. Shawn's not going to drop the title tonight. We're going to have him surrender the belt and figure something out. And that was it. It wasn't, and at that point, it wasn't a discussion. It wasn't, well, can we do this? Can we do that? It was, this is what we're going to do. and figure it out beyond that. We'll talk about beyond that later. Let's get through the night.
Help me understand. Why were you talking about it the night before? Let me just freestyle.
Because we knew he'd been to the doctor that week. We knew he had been to the doctor on Friday. He called Vince. He and Vince had a conversation. So the question then is if Shawn can't go and he comes in and says, I can't go, we got to have a plan B.
So let me ask this. The doctor he's going to is a WWE appointed doctor or one he goes to see on his own?
No, this is his doctor in San Antonio.
Does WWE correspond with that doctor, or Shawn just tells us what's up and that's it?
As far as I know, I didn't correspond with him. No, I was just doing TV and booking. So it was Vince that had the conversation with him, and it was Shawn's doctor. And they probably did. Knowing Vince, he probably did talk to the doctor. But Vince felt that he needed to talk to Shawn that day, and they had their discussion. And, he went. But, everybody talks about the promo. Okay, I can't go because of my knee. I may never wrestle again, blah, blah, blah. My mom said I lost my smile, which made everybody go, what the fuck? So you're going,
I'm depressed. I don't want to do this. I'm overworked, or my knee hurts. Which one is it?
Yeah. Is it you may never walk again, you may never wrestle again, or is it
I'm depressed?
Mom said I lost my smile.
Yeah.
And dropping the title and forfeiting the title has nothing to do with the work schedule and making every appearance and doing everything that you're asked to do. Yeah, he did all that. But so did everybody else before him and after him. So it was, it was kabuki-ish because we were live and went out there and did that. So it was.
You gotta stop fucking saying kabuki-ish. Nobody knows what you're saying.
Yeah, they do. They know it's kabuki-ish. It's weird. It's kabuki-ish.
So you get.
So yeah, we didn't know. We did not know what the fuck we had, man. And you there's so many times that you leave a building on an evening. It's Miller time. And a guy's hurt, and they think, oh, my God, this is really bad. And they wake up the next day, and A, they're either better, or B, they're much worse off. So you don't make a decision until, you get them there the next day and see how the hell they are that day. And that was Vince's viewpoint on it. Yeah, we're going to talk about it. And what if? Guys, keep this in the back of your mind. This could happen.
Let me ask this. I kept asking, is this a WWE doctor or a Shawn doctor? Because why? Why would you think I would want to know that?
Well, because the WWE doctor is going to tell you, the straight up, and we're going to have that communication with them.
Well, we don't know if it's Shawn's doctor.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I know. I'm with you, dude. I'm with you on it.
So
shit.
Here's my question. It's all over the internet. There's people who have strong opinions, and Brett and other wrestlers have espoused these opinions for years. I don't want to know what everybody else thought and the way Vince span it. I want Bruce Prichard to state clearly for the record, did you buy, given that it was Shawn's doctor and this lose my smile comment, that and his reputation at the time, not now, but at the time, that he was fucking bullshitting here and just didn't want to do the job at WrestleMania and was ready to just come off the card.
But nobody said he was doing the job at WrestleMania, and I don't know where that comes from either. The thing was, do I believe the knee injury? No, I don't.
Okay.
I believe he was depressed and boo-boo faced and was just whatever the hell he was, but I don't believe that he was injured and maybe not going to wrestle again. So, again, when you're sitting there and we're all looking at him and going, okay, he's walking up the stairs fine. And, all that and everything's fine. And then, but again, those telltale comments, I lost my smile.
Right.
If you can't walk and you're wondering about, will I ever wrestle again? That's the only goddamn thing on your mind. Not, I lost my smile.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, no, I didn't buy it.
Meltzer says that this threw a total monkey wrench in all the house show and WrestleMania plans. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And, and here's the other thing. This is crazy because I know your next question. I sat there and I watched WrestleMania and I went back and I did my little research for this. I couldn't tell you today what the hell the plans were other than I know everything was fucked up. I don't remember what the hell the plans were because we had to work so hard to change everything to go, okay, man, we got to fast track Steve and Brett. What the fuck are we going to do with the title? Who's that next babyface that they're going to accept with the championship? And it's like, okay, well, there's Taker there. He's never been the champion. Do we go there?
Quit skipping ahead, dickhead. I just wanted to, just for a minute, say, hey, thanks for saying I don't remember. And now this feels a lot like a WCW show. Anyway, Tony, what else don't you remember?
The booking committee. That was them.
All right, let's get going here. There's talk, and I don't know, how far we can go with this, but there's a random tidbit in the February 10th Wrestling Observer that says, quote, Dennis Rodman's people told WCW that he had a $500,000 offer to do WrestleMania and be in Goldust Corner to set the two up as a tag team for SummerSlam. Since he'd previously worked for WCW, he gave them the opportunity to match the offer. The belief is WCW would have, but Rodman's NBA probation may not allow him to be a part of pro wrestling angles. And then in February, on the 17th, it's reported that Rodman signed with WCW. Quote, WCW was able to outmaneuver the WWF, which was also pursuing Rodman. The WWF had offered Rodman a 2-show deal, reportedly for $1 million. The first of which would have been at WrestleMania to appear in Goldust Corner to attempt to help the faltering Goldust character get over stronger as both a babyface and as a mainstream bizarre cult figure. The second of which was the SummerSlam pay-per-view in August where he and Goldust would have formed a tag team. So, what say you? What really happened with Dennis Rodman and you guys?
We reached out to Rodman for that to do something in Chicago at WrestleMania and did pitch him coming back at SummerSlam, being a tag team partner with Goldust at some point. Well, not at some point, at SummerSlam. Don't have any idea what the money offer was. It was simply are you interested? And he went with WCW. But yeah, we floated that out there to do something with him and Goldust.
Why do you think that is? That he wound up going with WCW.
I think that man, Hogan was there. They were hot at the time.
Okay, fair enough.
I think he figured that was a hot property to go with.
Now, a lot of people listening to this may not get the context, but tell everybody where Dennis Rodman was playing basketball in 1997.
Chicago Bulls.
So WrestleMania is in Chicago, and at the time, he had written a book. And how did he show up to his book press events?
In a beautiful white wedding dress on a Harley.
So this guy is like mainstream with a capital M. So that kind of gives you a peek into, hey, why would anybody want Dennis Rodman at the time?
Indy was a fan.
Absolutely. So let's kind of skip around a little bit. It feels like Raw kind of stalls a little bit in early 1997, especially coming out of this injury with Shawn Michaels. And the Observer even writes, the biggest problem that for the WWF in going to 2 hours once again appears to be a lack of talent depth. And you guys are trying some weird stuff here. And I found this interesting in my research. On March 10th, it's reported in the Observer that you guys had debuted the new stage and the explosions to start the show. So this is the departure from the RAW letters or the very simplistic entrance. Now we've got a big stage and we've got a big Tron and we've got the brand new intro. And the theme, do you remember what it was? Just for a couple weeks.
Raw's War? I don't know. What?
Marilyn Manson's The Beautiful People.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I just thought that was awesome that you guys, I had kind of forgotten about it. I remember it, as soon as I read it, it rang a bell, but How did that come about? Marilyn Manson at the time feels like a bit of a stretch for Vince McMahon to get behind, and I'm sure he had no fucking idea who that is, and you're not nearly cool enough to do it. I mean, if it was Merle Haggard, I would know it was you, but who the fuck put Marilyn Manson in the loop? That was awesome.
That was the guys at TV. The guys in TV production were usually pretty hip on the music scene. That was Jim Johnston, who's music. I think he's doing a new album that's coming out with a lot of his music. But Jim always was kind of on that cutting edge, looking for new bands that needed exposure and a different sound to kind of make the show a little bit edgy. I remember that, though. Yeah, the beautiful people, the beautiful people. Yeah, it was great.
It was really, really interesting considering where the WWF had been just prior to this. Marilyn Manson was, without a doubt, the most controversial figure in music at the time. Let's talk about Ken Shamrock for a little bit. He debuted with you guys at the Manhattan Center on February 24th, 1997. And this is a really, really big deal. He's 33 at the time, and he signs a 3-year guaranteed exclusive contract with the WWF for what's reported to be a low 7-figure downside guarantee and a signing bonus. And the idea that you guys were doing that, I call bullshit on. I'll circle back in a minute. Meltzer reports, in addition, Vince McMahon has the option after 3 years to continue the contract for an additional 3 years without Shamrock having the option to test himself at that point on the free agent market. The contract is exclusive, ending his participation in the UFC or any shoot fighting events. At least as of press time, it appears to kill what some Japanese insiders were expecting to wind up being the biggest money live match in pro wrestling history, a proposed April 12th match at the Tokyo Dome against Hashimoto for the IWGP Championship. And it was reported that he would be expected to start training in Connecticut with Dr. Tom Prichard as to the WWF style. And this kind of throws a monkey wrench in a lot of people's plans where, you know, they thought they were going to sign Ken Shamrock. So how did this come about? Who contacted who? When did you guys realize there was a real interest here? What did you perceive his real value to be? You guys at the time were presenting him and referencing him as ABC's most dangerous man in the world. Tell me about it.
Vince wanted real. Vince wanted legitimacy. He wanted real. UFC was starting to get over more, and a lot of their guys were coming to the forefront. So we were looking at some of the UFC guys to see if there was a crossover star there. There was feeling that maybe that guy was Dan Severn. There was also, it's funny, I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I made a huge play for a young Vitor Belfort.
Wow.
To try and get, 19-year-old Vitor Belfort from, where the hell is he from?
Brazil.
Brazil, to come in. But the language barrier was a big barrier, and he just wasn't interested in fake sport, as his people put it. Vince was high on Ken Shamrock. He had seen some of the outside stuff that Shamrock had done and felt that Shamrock had the charisma and the crossover potential head and shoulders above anybody else in that MMA world. So I reached out. I reached out to Shamrock, and we started talking. As you said, the Japanese promotion, New Japan, they were in hot pursuit as well. And WCW was also trying to get Shamrock. So the funny story, which I'll out one of the New Japan guys everybody speaks so fondly of, Hattori. I was trying to broker a deal so that Kenny could get the payday in Japan and still come with us and do our deal. Hattori was double dealing, trying to get the deal for New Japan, but he was also working to try to get Kenny in WCW. So you remember I guess they still have it now. We still have it on our cell phones. But I was in my kitchen on my phone, and they used to have the your phone would beep, and you'd click call waiting and go over to the other call.
Right.
So I'm on the phone with my Japanese counterpart, Mr. Hattori, and his English is minimal at, yes, very, I not so, Mr. Shamrock. Well, in between, while I'm discussing all this shit with him, he gets another call. So he clicks over to pick up the other call. And he comes back, yes, no, we can talk more. Hold on one more time. He clicks over, but this time it doesn't click over, but he thinks it's clicked over. And he goes from, me to, hey, Eric, we can get Ken for those dates. And I'm thinking, hey, Hattori, it's still Bruce. Hold on. And I just was so fucking insulted. And I called Shamrock. I said, Kenny, I don't think we're going to be able to work out this New Japan deal with you. And I don't think we're going to be able to let you do both, but we'll make it worth your while to come in. So we had talked to Ken. We secured Ken early on. But I think one of the other funny things that happened in the middle of the Ken Shamrock negotiations back and forth, Vince and I made a trip to Boston for a house show with Vince driving. And on the way back, it was a horrible, horrible, horrible rainstorm, rain and sleet and hail and all this shit. And Vince had a Cadillac. And we're driving down the Merritt Parkway. And the Merritt Parkway has a part where you kind of go over a bridge, and it's one of those metal bridges that your tires just get the groove and it catches your car right. And he's doing, when I looked over, about 130 miles an hour. And the rain is coming down sideways and hitting the fucking car, and I cannot see a goddamn thing. And I look at him, and I look at the speedometer, and I said, hey, man, just out of curiosity, can you see where you're going? And he looked at me, and I swear to God, it was from a movie where he looked at me and he grew horns, and his face was actually bright red, and the motherfucker had horns coming from his head, and he just was like, and was staring at me, laughing his ass off, doing 130 miles an hour on this freaking bridge with my life in his hands. So that was just another part of Ken Shamrock that I remember, because in the meantime, we're dialing Shamrock and trying to get Shamrock on the speakerphone to finish up this deal on our way home. Just had to throw that in.
If Jerry Jarrett was dialing the number, never mind. These days, of course, Vince doesn't drive a Cadillac.
On speaker? What? How do you? Hello? Hello? Huh? Okay.
Of course, these days, Vince doesn't drive a Cadillac. It was reported this week that Vince was in a fender bender in his Bentley in Connecticut. I know you weren't there, but hypothetically, what might that have sounded like?
Goddamn, Gerald. You work on Bentleys, pal? Is it worth the drive? You send a goddamn wrecker. Well, Mr. McMahon. Double Briscoe. Damn, one of them's battered up. Got double Briscoe. Shit.
So let's talk about.
Hey, and by the way, somebody's going to kill me for this, but that's a shoot.
Are you serious? Wait a minute. In 2017, when Vince McMahon wrecked his Bentley, his first person to call is Gerald Briscoe in fucking Florida.
Well, who the fuck would you call, Conrad? That'd be my first call. saying.
You know, we accuse people of being in the wrestling bubble sometimes. It's no wonder when the Wizard of Oz himself is so far in the bubble that he's literally 1,000 miles away. Well, goddamn, call Gerald, pal.
I mean, let me tell you something. Briscoe Brothers Body Shop, they could work miracles from thousands of miles around all the time.
Chat me up about Shamrock. This is bullshit, 7 figures, am I right?
Yeah.
Was there any truth to the idea that he trained with your brother Tom?
He did come in and work out, for a while just to get the ring rust off. Yeah.
Did your brother Tom?
Kenny had worked before. Kenny had worked as Vinny Valentino or something like that before his UFC days. So he had been a worker before. He just came in to get the ring rust off was all.
Has anybody ever seen Disco Inferno and Ken Shamrock at the same place at the same time? I'm just asking.
Ooh, good question. I got to talk to Disco on Conan's podcast this week.
All right, cool story. Fun. Yeah, great. Do you remember your brother giving any sort of feedback as to what type of wrestler or learner or what his potential was? I know you've told us before that, when he told you about Kurt Angle, he was saying he's attacking the mat and he took to it like a fish to water. What would the feedback have been on a Shamrock?
No, the Shamrock was easy. Shamrock he picked it right up again. And like I said, it wasn't really a training scenario as much as it was just somebody to get in the ring with him and roll around with him to get that ring rust off and keep him from snapping somebody's neck.
It was reported that you personally called the UFC trying to get the rights to use Ken Shamrock UFC MMA footage on WWF TV. How did those conversations go?
They went well. It's funny. In the middle of it, the whole thing almost blew up in our face because of a misunderstanding. Let's get it on, that referee.
Big John McCarthy.
Big John, yes. Big John and Ken were close friends, and Ken wanted to bring Big John in for a one-off to do referee a match with him.
Would have been fucking great. That's a great call.
Yeah, and I said, well, hell, sure, we'd be open to that. And that was the end of the conversation. Well, I had reached out to the folks over at UFC. God, I'm trying to remember. I didn't deal with Campbell. I dealt with Meyerowitz. Yeah, Bob Meyerowitz. And real nice guy. And he was happy as shit to help us out any way we can. And then somehow he heard that we were trying to steal Big John.
Oh, my gosh.
Which was not the case.
He works for the fucking Athletic Commission.
Yeah, but he was still the UFC guy, and they felt that we were trying to steal Big John. And he called Vince all upset. Here I am trying to work with you guys, and then this guy is trying to grab Big John. And I could hear Vince yelling through the wall for me. I walked over and I'm like, what? And he says, did you call this goddamn referee? I said, no. What are you talking about? And he told me the story, and I said, no. Ken asked about the possibility of using him at some point, and I told him maybe we could at some point. So we got Meyerowitz back on the phone right then, and everything was cool.
Well, so there you go. Talk to me about other interests and other people. Once you got Shamrock, were you guys kind of done, or was there any thought that you needed more than this?
Well, we brought Severn in after that, and there was always, like we talked about, Coleman and Kerr, Tank, some of those different guys.
So the plan was not just I'm going to get one and get my fill. It's I want to get a crop of these guys, or was it I want to start with Shamrock, see how it goes, and then add to it?
Well, no, Vince was always looking for charismatic athletes to come in and hopefully come in. But that's what you look for. You're not looking for a UFC guy that his only use is to go out there and beat somebody up, because it's not a shoot. So you're looking for somebody that's got charisma and personality.
Okay, tell me about Dan Severn, fucker.
He was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
No, I'm talking about all the charisma and personality.
He has a lot of charisma and personality in real life.
No,
I've
met him in real life. He is phenomenal. He could not be a nicer human. Great guy. But when the camera's on, he has the personality of a fucking UPS truck.
Yeah, and but Vince felt that he might be able to get that personality off screen, on screen.
All right, then.
Didn't work.
Let's talk about Dr. Death for a minute, because there's rumor and innuendo that you guys were in serious negotiations with him when he is arrested on March 17th in Laredo, Texas on drug possession charges. And this has a delay, of course, for his signing with the company. How far along were you guys with these negotiations when this happens? What's it like when you get the call? What are your memories of Dr. Death being busted?
Shit, I think we had signed him.
Really?
Yeah, I know we had agreed at that point, because I don't know if I made the call or Jim Ross made the call, but it was done in principle. I know that. So it was, yeah.
You going to tell me about the arrest?
Well, he got popped for drugs. He got popped for bringing a ton of, what was it? It was steroids and somas and all kinds of shit.
All kinds of shit.
Vicodin and muscle relaxers and just tons of stuff from Mexico. But charges were dropped and all that good stuff. So whatever the hell happened, I don't know what the fuck happened. But yeah, those negotiations and that contract was revoked pretty damn quick.
Did you take him a check? A cashier's check that wasn't traced, or a suitcase like y'all did for Snuka, or how did you make all those charges get dropped?
We didn't have anything to do with them.
Oh, you had a bagman.
Said talk to us when your legal problems are over.
You shady fuckers.
We didn't do shit.
Sure he didn't. Cool. So the governor of New Jersey announces somewhere in here, I'm going to guess March, that they had done away with a tax bill that had previously prevented the WWF from running shows there. But this kind of frees it up to where, hey, if this is gone, we'll bring you a big pay-per-view, and they bring SummerSlam 1997 there. Kind of curious through why that tax bill was a big deal and what your memories of that are as far as it being a victory for the WWF when that changes.
Well, because the whole state athletic commission was a fucking scam and bunch of bullshit. You're paying tax on tax. You got to pay double tax if you're a wrestling and boxing event. They charge you another 5% on top of what you're already paying in state and federal taxes. Then you got to pay another for somebody to come in on an entertainment event and take somebody's blood pressure. It's bullshit. That's all it was. It was just the whole athletic commission governing professional wrestling was a joke.
Around this same time, Jake Roberts is fired, and it's reported in the Observer, quote, 2 weeks back, he took a rental car while on the Texas-Louisiana tour and disappeared for 2 days, including missing a shot. It was just a few weeks back when he was fired, but then rehired the next day for something similar. I guess his 9 lives were up this time. He'd been working in the office helping write television, besides working as an occasional in-ring performer when needed. What are your memories of Jake's on-again, off-again employment in 1997 and then this rental car disappearance in Texas, Louisiana?
Man, it was a rough time for Jake. He'd come in, said he'd cleaned up his act, and got on the road, and his act hadn't cleaned up. So, I mean, that was it. It was just the old Jake reared its ugly head, and Vince had given him a second chance and said, let's try this. I pushed for it hard because I felt that Jake's mind was valuable. I felt that he offered a lot, and I felt that he could help a lot of guys with psychology and ring work. So I thought that he could, selfishly, I thought he could help me write TV. I thought he was very creative. But, the demons took hold, man, and we got the old Jake back, and he became unreliable and just did some crazy shit.
The go-home show for WrestleMania is the one where a lot of people remember Bret Hart being in a cage with Sid, and the Undertaker comes down, slams the cage door, seemingly turning on Bret Hart. They go to commercial, they come back, they're taking the cage down, Vince is in the ring, and Bret takes the microphone from him, pushes him down, and yells something like, something isn't the goddamn word for it, this is bullshit. And they air both of these. And then they show Stone Cold doing a promo, and then there's a big schmoz, and it's a big pull apart. It's a pretty hot way to go to the show. But I'm curious, it feels like you guys wouldn't have just done this. You would have gotten some sort of permission. What did USA know was going to happen? What didn't they know was going to happen?
It was late night. I want to say it was probably right at that 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it was actually run over just a little bit.
Yeah, so they knew we had permission. It was cable. They knew it was coming. They were fine with it. But it was to show that edgier, whiny Bret Hart.
And he was cool. He was cool with, after being a babyface this whole time, saying goddamn and bullshit on TV.
Sure.
Okay. So let's talk about the matches itself. WrestleMania 13. Let's get into it. And the only dark match that, well, I guess it's actually aired on the free for all. Billy Gunn as Rockabilly defeated Flash Funk with the Funkettes. You got anything for me?
Flash, he's funky. Yeah, that's all I got.
Man, it's crazy that you guys saddled Billy Gunn with Rockabilly. Whose fucking idea was that?
Yeah, you know what? That was one of those situations where, I almost said Hillbilly Jim. He's in here. But Honky Tonk Man coming back and thinking about, okay, well, this would be an opportunity for Honky to manage somebody and get somebody over, or maybe use Honky as a mouthpiece because Billy wasn't that great on the mic. And it sucked.
I can't wait to make fun of Honky Tonk Man in a little bit. The first match on the card is a tag match. But before we get there, I want to talk about the voiceover. I hadn't seen this voiceover in quite a while, and I watched the show this week, and it kind of stuck out a little bit. Who did the voiceover for this? Do you recall? Because it feels like this guy did most of the reads at the time.
This was during the Sahadi years, so it was, I don't remember his name, but yeah, he was a professional voiceover guy in the Northeast that did a lot of our stuff. He was great. He had that deep voice. It was tremendous.
It was classic.
Yeah.
So then the four-way happens with the Godwins out first, which is Henry O and Phineas, and Hillbilly Jim is there. Before we move on to the other teams, how did you rank Phineas and Henry O as performers, as co-workers, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I liked the hell out of them personally. I thought that Mark Canterbury, who was Henry, could have been a huge star. And the feeling was when he first came in to make him a heel and then turn him into a babyface and kind of make him that big country lovable guy like Hillbilly Jim was at one time, who was over like Rover back in the day. And that was the intention with Henry originally coming in. I just thought that he had a shitload of potential. And, Dennis, Phineas, great guy, loves the business, but he was what he was.
What does that mean?
He was never going to be a main eventer. Didn't have, great physique, and he was okay in the ring. But he just didn't have that extra it factor to get him over the top.
I loved Henry, and Henry is a hell of a nice guy. I met him at NWA Legends Fan Fest this past year in Charlotte, and he is still a monster of a man. I mean, you know him when you see him. That's a big dude. But I'm curious, though, what the fuck is Hillbilly Jim doing here? It feels like way out of place. And I understand that you said, he was over like Rover back in the day. But in 1997?
to be able to get these guys over as baby faces and for people to cheer them. That was it. Color as much as you can to get people. You get the older fan that remembered Hillbilly Jim back then and endorse some of these newer guys.
I guess I understand that in theory, but what I'm asking is, what's he doing? He walks to the ring?
Yeah, and sings. Don't go mess with country boy, country boy, country boy. Don't go mess with country boy, don't mess with country boy. Yee-haw!
That's not even
One more time.
That's not on the network, but you got it here, so there you go. Also here are Doug Furnace.
Oh, that pissed me off on this show, man. The fucked up music. I was hot.
Doug Furnace and Phil LaFawn are here. We talked about them briefly on the ECW episode, which is available in the archives, but catch everybody up about Furnace and LaFawn.
Doug Furnace and Phil LaFawn, yeah. I mean, that was it. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but boy, there were parts of this match that were painful as shit to watch.
Well,
and
do you have anything complimentary about either Furnace or LaFawn or any sort of antidote?
Yeah, Doug Furnace had one of the best drop kicks the business ever saw.
Phil LaFawn had Doug Furnace.
He spoke French.
We also had the Headbangers, Mosh and Thrasher. We've touched on them briefly here or there. One of the more underrated acts at the time. It seems like they're going to get a push here because they come out of here victorious. Of course, I'm skipping around here. But catch me up. What did you think of the Headbangers? How did you guys come across them? Whose idea was that? Why was Vince high on them? Blah, blah, blah.
Jim Cornette introduced the Headbangers to us, and they were first introduced at Shotgun Saturday Night earlier that year as the Sisters of Love. And we put them in nun outfits and had this really great manager, good-looking guy, full of charisma.
He was too fat to ride a blimp, though.
He was, but he wasn't too fat to get a couple of nuns over for 2 weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We actually went in to St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, 2 men in goatees in nun outfits and Brother Love, and walked in and walked out of St. Patrick's Cathedral and shot us leaving there for vignettes.
And then, of course, we've got the new Blackjacks. I want to talk about these guys because I absolutely loved this tag team as a kid. I thought they were awesome, and I wish there was more of them. We briefly are shown a picture of the Blackjacks from 1975 with Blackjack Mulligan and Blackjack Lanza. And then we cut back to a promo with Pettingill. Wyndham is silent, and they let your boy, JBL, or Blackjack Bradshaw, do the promo. And then they are just right out of the gate. And I absolutely loved the way JBL power walked to the ring like Stan Hansen. I mean, if you put a bull rope in that dude's hand and he swung it around, that was Stan Hansen. It was awesome. Why did the new Blackjacks fizzle? Because it felt like they got a little bit of a push for a minute. They're two big badass dudes. Everybody knows what great success Layfield would go on to have. Certainly a Hall of Famer. And then Wyndham, my gosh, once upon a time, one of the best performers in the world. And they're in a tag team here, and they're getting a little bit of a push. And then what happened?
Well, I think that there was an effort on their part to be too much like the Blackjacks. Instead of reinventing the Blackjacks for 1997, I think they were trying to be the Blackjacks 1975. During this match, when Wyndham was in there, holy shit, did he look good. I mean, he's just so damn good. Barry Windham was a great worker, and it showed in this match. The guys that were out of place in this match, in my opinion, there were 3. It was Furnace, LaFawn, and Phineas that were really just kind of lost in the match. But there was a little bit clusterish until you got Furnace, LaFawn, and the Blackjacks out of there, and it settled down a little bit with the Godwins and the Headbangers. But it was a bit of a cluster.
So in the match, of course, we get a win from Mosh. It's elimination. Blackjacks are DQ'd first when Bradshaw pushes down a ref for no reason. Furnace and LaFawn are counted out for fighting with the Blackjacks. That leaves the Headbangers and the Godwins. Mosh comes off the top with some sort of like Thez press, butt to the chest on Phineas and gets the pin. Meltzer gave it a negative half star. He hated the match. What'd you think of the match?
Like I said, I thought it was a clusterfuck until it settled down to the two teams. And we got out of it what we wanted. We wanted the Headbangers to win and get a new team spotlighted.
Well,
it wasn't a match of the year, that's for damn sure, but it wasn't negative.
It's also the first time that I remember a tag match had been done like this at WrestleMania. Wouldn't you agree? Like an elimination like this?
Yeah, I think so.
So Rocky Maivia is out next to take on the Sultan. I guess the Sultan comes out first. He's got Bob Backlund and Iron Sheik with him here. The Sultan here is being portrayed by the guy who would go on to play Rikishi. For some of you younger fans who may not remember who the Sultan was. And I don't know why, but man, I fucking love Jim Johnston's version of the Sultan's theme music here. Probably the best thing about the character. Can we agree?
Okay.
All right. Well, give me something else.
You didn't like the ponytail in the mask?
Did you draw that?
No, but I did love it. I used to love it when guys would grab it and pull on the ponytail,
and the whole mask would come up.
The whole mask would come off, and it would just, oh, god damn.
What? How does this come about? Rikishi had been with y'all for a while here. Whose idea is the Sultan? I mean, it's just like, well, we need a new version of the Sheik. Let's get a Middle Eastern character.
It was Vince's idea. He loved the idea. He liked the mask and that whole nine yards, and just thought he could cover up Junior enough that no one would ever know. And he had a soft spot for the Iron Sheik. So it was another way to get Iron Sheik involved as well. And throw Bob Backlund in there, and you got old and older and and a big Samoan.
Hypothetically, if the Iron Sheik was going to sell some T-shirts for us, what might that sound like?
For to be, I'm fired, and you go to the Bruce Prichard.com. Baba, look at me. I used to be over, Baba. You know, I am a Bruce Prichard guy. Well, you know, but I know ya. Iron Sheik no yap for no jabroni hawking. Dude, fuck you. Well, you know, fuck a riba mania, I break your back, humble you. Fuck you and ass at BrucePrichard.com for to be. I wrote this shit. Pronouns, pal. Fuck you too.
Let's just fucking call it a show. It's over. We ain't gonna beat that.
I'm over, Baba. I'm for to be over.
Oh my god. So let's talk about how Rocky Maivia won the Intercontinental title. I'm sure we'll cover Rock's first year in the business at some point, but he debuted at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden in November. A couple of months after that, in that same Lost My Smile edition of Raw in Lowell on February 13th, he pins Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a 15-minute match to win the title using an inside cradle. And they do an interview with him afterwards. Doc Hendricks does, and Triple H storms off. And this, at least to me, seems like there may be the seeds of, hey, this is what we're going to see at WrestleMania, Triple H and Rocky Maivia. Well, that doesn't happen. The Wrestling Observer writes, Rocky Maivia, the former Dwayne Johnson with less than 1 year in the pros, was surprisingly given the Intercontinental title on February 13th from Hunter Hearst Helmsley. There'd been some question that Maivia's push was going to wind up in a Van Hammer / Eric Watts-like situation, that fans wouldn't buy a green wrestler being shoved down their throats and pushed back. If there was any doubt during the match and even before the title had changed, there were chants of Rocky sucks. Rocky has potential, but pushing it by putting the belt on him with less than a year of ring time is going to make the fans resent him, as it has already happened. So that's kind of Meltzer's take, and that is where we started to see Rocky sucks and die Rocky die, and kind of the pushback from the white meat babyface. How did that affect The Rock at the time? What advice are people giving him at the time? I know his dad is around a little bit, but I'm sure agents, Pat Patterson, yourself, whoever is in the back giving him some advice. And I'm curious, before he has all the swagger and confidence that The Rock does in 2017, how was he reacting to that in early 97?
Well, obviously the kid didn't have it and would never make it in the business, so that was all wrong. You know, it was, they did, man. They puked him back up. It was, the audience wants you to earn your stripes, and they want to feel as if they brought you to whatever point you get to. So if you're going to be a champion, the audience wants to feel that they brought you that championship. And he was pushed right away, man. He had the look. He had it all. But hindsight being 2020, in a lot of ways, if you could go back and write it, I think I would write it exactly the same way and let him. To me, it's a good thing. Hindsight. We didn't plan it. I'm not saying that, hey, we planned those Rocky sucks chants, but I'm saying that those Rocky sucks chants and die Rocky die probably helped his career more than anyone will ever know. Because when he did get hurt and went away, we had something that we could really feed off of to bring him back as a heel with the nation. And while it was tough at the time, I think the advice was pretty much, man, you got to persevere, you got to fight through it, and do what you do, and let the audience do what they do, but don't feed into it. And that was just an old school mentality of fight through it. But yeah, they were puking him up at that point.
So let's talk about the match itself. What'd you think of Rocky Maivia, the white meat babyface, with his ramen noodle haircut here, his pineapple willy haircut here, taking on the Sultan? This
was the Chia Pet look.
There you go.
This time.
Rocky.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the match? It goes longer than it probably should have.
Actually, I didn't think the match was terrible. It got terrible with the interference from Shikipu and Backlund, but it wasn't terrible. Again, you see shades of The Rock that we know and love today, and goddamn, man, Rikishi could go. And back then he was a little bit lighter, and he could go. Their shit was solid, but I felt that there were probably too many false finishes in there and not good false finishes. But I didn't think the match itself was bad until we got to the finish with all the interference and gaga.
They put this feud together in like 17 days or so, start to finish. So kind of in a hurry. And then the match itself, to me, was not awesome. And I'm curious, why it's put together this way. I wondered if this is Rock's first WrestleMania and you're wanting to get him over as the white meat babyface, do you just put him with the quote unquote foreigner heel because it's easy to see who to boo and who the heel is? And do you do this because, they're related and they're going to be comfortable with each other? What's the thought in pairing them up? It just seems like it's kind of thrown together.
Well, the idea simply was that you do the white meat babyface against a heel that the audience isn't going to cheer. With Triple H, you got Triple H out there with China, younger, good-looking guy with a cool, bodyguard chick that looks kind of cool. They did shit on him with the title. So get him away from that where they have something else to choose and go with the stereotypical Easy to do. You know, white meat baby faces versus the traditional foreigner heel.
So leading up to this, he's congratulated at an episode of Raw by his dad, Rocky Johnson, and they're trying to put over that he's the first third-generation star, of course, his grandfather being the High Chief Peter Maivia. Talking about the match itself, Meltzer wrote, "No question Maivia has both the look and the athletic ability to someday be what they want him to be, but a lot of folks resent him getting pushed to this degree because he's not there yet. The post-match angles was one of those things that looked better on paper than it turned out to be." And the post-match angle was where The Rock gets the win, and then right after, of course, Sheik's in there, Backlund's in there, they bring the flag in, they get Rocky down, and Sheik puts The Rock in the camel clutch. What might that sound like?
For to be your Rocky Baba, fuck you an ass and humble you. Fuck your dad too, Baba.
Why invite Tony Atlas here if you're not going to involve him? Tony Atlas is sitting front row.
God damn, I'm laughing my ass off watching that, thinking, oh my God, we're burying Tony Atlas right now.
He looks so bad because you show him on camera
right before,
and now you've got your your tag team partner's son getting beat up 3-1, and then his tag team partner comes in and he's still just sitting in the crowd, jacked than a motherfucker, doing nothing.
Goddamn, pal, that was Saba Simba. I don't understand. He didn't understand what was happening in front of him. It was foreign to him being out of the jungles. Now, I'm very disappointed in you, actually.
Why?
Because you didn't mention what I guarantee you missed in the entrance of this match. The Slammy Awards the night before, and The Rock with his, quote, girlfriend, Cindy Margolis, at the Slammy Awards. And Cindy Margolis, for those of you who don't know, was a supermodel. She wasn't a supermodel, but she was a pinup model who had eclipsed Sonny as the most downloaded celebrity at that time. And we had Cindy for WrestleMania, so we put her with Rock as Rock's girlfriend for that weekend. And they mentioned it as he was coming to the ring, but Cornette, oh my God, the promos Cornette cut on that. God damn, you put him with a good-looking girl, he's a fucking heel. You're going to boo the shit out of him. They hate him now. They're going to hate him with a hot bitch, too. God damn it. You're killing him. So, yeah, that was interesting because the idea behind Cindy Margolis was to bring Cindy in and actually use her as Rock's girlfriend, and then do something with Sonny and do the most downloaded celebrity bullshit. But that lasted one night.
She did apparently a weird series of photos because I just Google imaged her and I ran across several pictures of her with various items in her mouth. And don't get excited, but it's like, here's her with a banana in her mouth. Here's her with a chocolate banana in her mouth. Here's her with a pickle in her mouth. I mean, it's like, what happened? What are we doing?
What the hell are you looking at? I just oh my God.
I'm like, wait a minute. What the fuck happened over here? What are you doing? What are you doing for money over there?
Yeah, the sex pictures are her. I don't know if that's her with the banana. Yeah, it is. That's wow.
Hey, let me just
the
say,
banana. She's got a lollipop in one.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, wait a minute. What are you did like a theme of how many things can I put in my mouth?
What the hell?
Sounds a lot like somebody else who was there that night. Let me just say for 51, Cindy Margolis is still pretty damn good looking. Roll Tide.
And she was nice as could be too.
If I was going to make a comment about The Rock with his quote-unquote girlfriend at the Slammies the night before, it wouldn't have been that. But we'll circle back to that another time. Captain Lou is sitting front row next to Tony Atlas. you have to have a good fucking Captain Lou story here. At some point in the commentary, you even hear Jim Ross make some sort of comment that it must be cocktail hour, Captain Lou's here, or something like that.
Yeah, Captain Lou was there. It was better having him out there sitting there. And I believe he and Tony Atlas were the only two that were out. Lou was out there the entire night because I refused to have him backstage. So, yeah, we stuck. Arnie Skolin was out there just for the shot of him and Arnie Skolin. And then we put him and Tony Atlas out there for the entire night. But, yeah, Lou was lit.
What was Rocky Johnson like to deal with here? He has a really weird reputation online.
This time, Rocky, he was pretty easy to deal with. He wasn't a problem. At this point, man, he was happy to get a payday and happy to be on TV.
So he was always just good to deal with? You don't have anything interesting you can share with us about Rocky Johnson?
Well, from my vantage point, he was always good to deal with because I never had to deal with him when allegedly he was difficult to deal with. By the time that I ever had to deal with him, I dealt with him as, Rocky's dad, and it was always a plus to be able to put him on TV, and he was always happy to get that exposure. So I never dealt with him back in the day other than casually.
No craziness with him otherwise?
No, especially during this time, man. He was happy that his kid was getting a break, and he was, like I said, the old timers, man, especially, Rocky, he was happy to get a payday.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, there's lots of weirdness out there because of, some run-ins with the law he had, or different stories that different promoters have, and rumors about him being estranged or not. But if we don't have anything to share, then we don't have anything to share.
No, there were times he was estranged with Rocky, but that, to my knowledge, that was much later in his career, in Rocky's career.
Let's talk about Vince McMahon as an announcer, because this is the last WrestleMania that he is an announcer.
And then from there, oh my, what a maneuver.
I don't know why, but I always wondered why he talk like this. What was up with that? Like getting higher and like further away, and 1, 2, he got it. No, he didn't.
Oh no. 1, 2, he's got him. Oh no. Yeah, we used to. Yeah, we would do him to him in the car.
Did he laugh?
Did he laugh?
Yeah. Is he cool with that or no?
Oh yeah. No, he laughed his ass off because we would just bust his balls with oh my, what he would ask us questions. Oh, what a maneuver. I was like, I dare you to call just one fucking move. Just one. God damn, pal. The audience doesn't know the name of the holds.
It's true. Hunter Hearst Helmsley does a promo backstage with Chyna, and then they're out to face Goldust and Marlena. And the backstory here, you may remember, they faced each other at the Royal Rumble when the Intercontinental title was on the line. Back then, Hunter was seconded by Curtis Hughes. But at the next pay-per-view, In Your House Final Four in Chattanooga, that is where Chyna would debut as a woman in the crowd who would just violently assault Marlena over the guardrail and then be escorted out. As we fast forward, we start to see her being paired with Hunter. And we continue this feud through February, including a Raw in Nashville on February 17th, the day after In Your House. This feud just continues to go on and on. So the match here starts off kind of hot, but then I thought it lost a little bit, but it was better than their Rumble match, I thought. Meltzer wrote, "These guys are both better than average workers, but for some reason, considering how hard each is pushed, they just have no chemistry in the ring with each other. As Goldust went for the curtain call, he saw Chyna after Marlena and pulled her to the apron. Helmsley came from behind with a knee dive to Goldust, who crashed into Marlena, and then Marlena flew into Chyna's arms. Chyna was throwing Marlena around in a bear hug while Helmsley hit the pedigree for the pin. 2 1/4 stars. What did you think of the match? And in hindsight, would you have preferred something different for either of these guys here?
Actually, I thought they had a damn good match. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it made me think back to, motherfucker, Goldust
was a hell of a worker, is a hell of a worker, is underrated.
Jesus. Yes.
I don't know why people sleep on him. We've had him on the poll a couple of times, but I think Goldust is maybe one of the most underrated performers of all time. Just his ring work is awesome. His character is great. Why does he should have been he should have had a run.
I'm watching this match thinking, good God, he's amazing. You know, and both of them are great workers, but to me, Goldust, man, got that MVP card on this one. He was great in this match. His stuff is crisp, even with the paint and everything. I 2.5 stars. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed this match. It's one of the ones. It's one I had starred and I wrote down. Great match. Goldust underrated.
No, I liked it a lot better than the Rumble match, but for whatever reason, I just never really liked Hunter and Dustin. I felt like they've had better matches with other people. I kind of agree with Meltzer here, and I felt that way before I read this recap.
You know, the funny thing to me was every time that they would talk about how concerned Marlena was, and they would take the shot of her in the corner sucking on the cigar, and she never had a change of expression on her face the entire time.
Had a lot of makeup on. Let's talk about the finish here, because I think what everybody remembers most of all from this is what?
China Ragdoll and Marlena.
God damn, that looked fucking great, did it not?
Yeah, but that's on Marlena too, though. Man, the way she like flopped her arms and brought her legs up, that was tremendous.
And let me just freestyle, I guess, here. Everybody's cool with everybody here. We got lots of questions about, was there any heat over this? But this just looked phenomenal, but I can't imagine that people were super fired up. Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah, no. Everybody's fine with it. Who would be fired up?
No, I don't know. I'm just giving you a heads up because I know there's some people on Twitter who were asking, hey, did China really not like them? And she really ragged all the shit out of her. And I'm like, well, no, that's kind of what she was supposed to do. And it looked awesome. Let's veer off into super personal territory here. Was China already hooking up with Triple H by this point?
I don't think so. It was still pretty new in the relationship.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know when the hell they started hooking up, but I remember when everybody kind of went, "Uh-oh, he's worked himself into a shoot."
When was that?
They were still pretty new here. This was like a couple months in, wasn't it?
Yeah, this is 1 month in. They started it
1 month. Then they weren't. No, they weren't hooking up. No, I don't think so.
You just said
I could be wrong.
You just said. I remember when people said, "Uh-oh, he worked himself into a shoot." When was that?
That was a while later, man. That was a while later. I want to say that was after. God, that was a while.
Did they try
it wasn't soon. That's for damn sure.
Did they try to keep it a secret at first?
I don't know if they did or not, but because we noticed it at TV, and I want to say that the first time that it was ever brought up in my presence was, I believe, Vince had called Hunter at home and Joni answered the phone. So he was like, okay. And they trained together anyway, and they lived in the same vicinity anyway. But that's when he said, hey, he might have worked himself into a shoot. But it was a little while. It wasn't this soon, I don't think at all.
All right. Next up.
But I couldn't tell you the time frame.
Thanks a lot, Tony. Next up, we've got Mankind and Vader out with Paul Bearer. And they're going to take on Owen Hart and the British Bulldog. Man, how fucking great was Owen Hart right here? I forgot how much I loved the 2-time Slammy Award winning Owen Hart. Just over the moon awesome to me. And of course, the British Bulldog has 2 belts here, the European title and the tag team title. How great was this pairing of Owen and Bulldog?
Some of the best times ever. And Owen took the funny thing was Owen took what some guys would have taken as a burden having to carry around 2 Slammies, and made it mean more than any championship belt you could ever want. The 2-time Slammy Award winning Owen Hart. And he was just magnificent. His timing was impeccable. The interview that they did in the Iowa where Jim Ross stopped them before the match and did the interview, and Owen had made a comment about how he was the leader of the team. And then JR asking both of them, and the way that Owen would defer the heat and then come right back around with the comment, "I'm the leader" at the end of it. He was just magnificent. He was so good, and I think this was some of his best work.
Something I found interesting is I don't remember you guys ever doing this, and I'm sure somebody's going to tweet me and say, no, they did it here, but I don't remember while a tandem, a tag team, or for that matter, a singles performer is making their entrance and walking to the ring, that a commentator stops them in the middle of the aisle for an interview on camera.
I can't remember one either, but like I said, like you just said, someone will probably correct us.
Well, so whose idea was that? Because it seems out of character at the time, is what I'm getting at.
It was just a way to do something different and to get that story told without having to do a long promo in the back, and to get them out in front of the people. Keep it moving. That's all.
Let's talk about Vader and Mankind, because we're talking about how great the Owen Bulldog stuff had been, but this kind of seems like consolation prize for Vader and Mankind. Vader had been main evented the SummerSlam show and was probably definitely supposed to main event Survivor Series and Royal Rumble. As we know, that didn't happen. The December pay-per-view was even named It's Time after Vader. He's not even on the fucking show, but he is one of the final 4. He does wrestle the Undertaker at the Royal Rumble, and he's one of the final 4 in the Royal Rumble, and then headlines the pay-per-view the month before, bleeds like a stuck pig, makes the cover of the Raw magazine, and now he's paired with Mankind, seemingly kind of just fucking thrown together here to challenge for the tag titles. How does that come about?
Well, I disagree with most of that, as you could probably guess, but the idea was Mankind was brand new, and by the way,
Mankind had been here a year at this point.
Well, no, it was still relatively new. And the reason I say that is because he was still shaving his head all messed up on one side.
He debuted in March of 96. It's March of 97. So tell me how.
Yeah, so he was still new.
Okay. I said a year, and you said no, he was new. Well, that's a year.
That's new.
That's a year.
But again, they were both, I thought they were both top guys, and it was all 4. Every single guy in that match was a top guy. So it was, to me, a top match that I don't think it was a step down for anybody in there.
Let me ask you.
Feel that if there was anybody lost in that match, unfortunately, it was Leon, because guys were zooming all around him, and there's a few spots in there where you can see Owen trying to get Leon to catch up, and Owen literally running around him, yelling spots at him, and Leon looking a little confused. But
the bloom was off the rose here.
It was,
yeah.
But at the same time, this was an attempt to kind of get him in the mix, keep him with Paul Bearer and keep him with Mankind, and obviously Mankind was off to the races as well. But I don't think to me it was all 4 top guys, and this is another one. I just, obviously I'm a big fan of Owen, but the announcers set the stage on this match so well, talking about you got to isolate Owen Hart, keep Bulldog out of this match. And Jim knew the story of the match and told that story throughout that match and how they kept Owen in the ring and isolated Bulldog. And I just thought it was masterfully done. I thought the match was great, and all 4 guys busted their ass. Some of the bumps Mankind took, fuck. It was insane.
I want to talk about that, too, because a couple of weeks prior to this, it comes out, Mankind had an MRI done this past week on his bad back. We've heard 2 reports, one that he had a herniated disc in his back, and it's rather serious. The other, from WWF, is that it was a sciatic nerve problem. He doesn't need surgery and had 2 weeks off between Mania and the South African tour, and they're hopeful the rest will ease the problem. But if not, he'll probably take time off after the South Africa tour. Do you remember this injury?
I don't, but there was always an injury with Mankind, and it would always blow my mind that he would still go out there and take the crazy bumps. That's Mick Foley. He can't help himself. And I know Vince would, I don't want to say chew his ass, but yeah, he would chew his ass a lot of times after some of those crazy bumps and just tell Mick, you don't need to do that. Stop doing it. But that's Mick Foley, and that's the kind of performer he is, and he's just going to continue to do it.
Meltzer wrote in February that the original plan was Owen Hart and Davey Boy versus Furnace and LaFawn with a tag title switch that happens on every WrestleMania. So he says that the original idea was that Furnace and LaFawn leave WrestleMania as tag champs. Was that match ever discussed? Is that all bullshit? What do you remember?
That match might have been discussed at some point, but then Furnace and LaFawn got here and the bell rang.
God damn.
What?
He's just burying motherfuckers today, boy. Woo.
Look, no, you know what? I like Doug a lot. They just were... Phil, I didn't get it. I just didn't get it with Phil. Nice guy, but I just didn't see it in the ring.
So let's see. Meltzer gives this star rating 2.5. What would you say?
I thought it was a good match. I don't know how many stars I would give it. I thought it was a good match. I thought it told a good story.
It's a count out. Anything in particular stand out to you besides Owen running circles, calling spots, and Mankind's crazy bumps?
No, I loved it. I loved watching the story of the match and the way that they isolated Owen and the way they told the story of the match with the heels doing their job. Well, they were both heels, but it was still a good story, and I loved it.
Right before this match, we go backstage and we see a famous now internet gif of Shawn Michaels sitting at a table in front of an AOL banner typing on a laptop. And it's pretty popular and pretty funny to look at. Is true or false? This is what it looks like when you use your laptop in 2017.
True. With the exception of the ponytail.
Hashtag when old people tweet. Next up, we've got, in my worldview, the main event. Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. This was built up for a long time. They had a match over the summer. Overseas that was released on Coliseum Video. Then, of course, Bret is gone. Stone Cold starts calling him out. Bret returns, accepts the challenge in October, and they face each other at the Garden at Survivor Series. But we're not done yet. They continue their feud. Stone Cold is the winner of the Royal Rumble after screwing Bret Hart at the Rumble match itself. They face each other in the Final Four. That doesn't go as everybody hopes. The go-home show for Raw, they screw Bret again. So this slow, subtle turn starts to happen. And there's lots of great promos building this up from Stone Cold's side, where he says something along the lines of, if Bret had been screwed as many times as he says, he would have struck oil by now. I ain't bringing a condom to the ring, but I'm bringing a hell of a can of whoop ass. All these little catchphrases, he really starts to get on and get over the bottom line, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe this is Stone Cold's coming out party, from a WrestleMania standpoint. I think the seeds, he was legitimized at Survivor Series. He became a superstar at the Royal Rumble, but he became the guy, at least in my view, here at WrestleMania. Would you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly.
The entrance is fucking awesome. If you have not seen this match, when we're done with this podcast today and you're finished, you need to go watch it today. It's one of the best matches in the history of professional wrestling. That's not just my opinion. That's a motherfucking fact. Kurt Hawkins would agree. So go check it out. WrestleMania 13. It's an I Quit match. Let's talk about why it's I Quit. It seems kind of cornball that it's a submission match. It's an I Quit match. And you've got Ken Shamrock here. They interview him, beforehand. Pettingill does in the back. And he says, well, I'm here because I understand submissions. And they show a clip from Raw where he is taking down Rockabilly Billy Gunn and kind of embarrassing him on Raw with a couple of different spots. And he keeps saying, I wasn't trying to hurt him. I was just trying to show him who I am. And he's in the back with his necklace and his jumpsuit looking like he's an extra from The Sopranos. And then he comes out in a painted on referee shirt. What's the thinking in making Ken Shamrock the referee?
Just to introduce Ken in a different way and put him in a top match and get Ken right into the top picture and put him in there with stars to introduce him. So it was just a different way to get him out there.
When did you start drug testing Ken Shamrock? The week after? This motherfucker looks like Hulk Hogan circa 1987 right here in his referee shirt. Am I wrong?
Kenny still looks like that.
Well, Bellator doesn't drug test. Let's get to the match itself. Stone Cold has said that this match was kind of difficult for him because he didn't really even have a fucking submission move. And so he's in the I Quit match with no submission moves. And that's kind of evidenced by the match. It starts off as a brawl. Stone Cold comes out first. The glass breaks with the Austin 316. Out next is Bret. And the announcers are really laying it on heavy here about, Bret and his recent reactions and the way he's been handling himself. And they're just really laying it on thick. And I think they do a great job in trying to tease this turn before it becomes very apparent. And you certainly see more of it unfold during the course of the match. Stone Cold starts off with a brawl right away. They're in the ring just for a few seconds, and then they're outside the ring, up and over the rail in front of Atlas and Albano, up the stairs, fighting through the crowd, just all over everywhere. What'd you think of the match?
Loved it. Loved every bit of it. The way Steve started it with the double leg and the way that they rolled around on the mat to start it, it was a fight. In addition to that, the way that the announcers told the story of that Austin didn't have a submission maneuver, but that he was going to beat the hell out of Bret until he quit. So it did tell the story of Bret is a submission guy, and he does know a lot of submissions. Steve doesn't, but he'll beat the hell out of him so much that Bret will want to quit. So the setup I thought was great, and these guys told a beautiful story in the match.
Let's talk about one of the more famous segments. I guess before we do that, we should talk about the fact that I think Bret did one of his better jobs here of isolating a body part and working on a body part. It becomes very realistic. I mean, the way he works on the leg and the way Austin sells everything. A lot of people kind of sleep on Austin as an in-ring performer. This is maybe the height of his career here as far as in-ring stuff. The dude is just a phenomenal next-level in-ring performer, and people just really focus on the character and the promos, and don't get me wrong, that's all awesome too. But his selling here and his work here is just fucking awesome, and I think a lot of people kind of forget that he's capable of this. But the way Bret worked on the leg, man, it just told the story, and Austin helped a great deal with that, of course. But at some point, they go to the outside. You see Bret start to prepare himself. Austin starts to Irish whip Hitman into the rail, and Bret reverses it. So Bret goes over, zips Austin. He admits he hadn't bled a lot in his career at that time. He asked Bret to do it for him. He does it. And the blood really adds to the match. And this one maybe more so than most, because the story here is Austin just won't quit. He has the will to win and to not quit, and he'll pass out before he'll quit. He's just not going to quit. And at one point, he breaks the sharpshooter, or so it seems. They put over that nobody's ever done that, but Bret doesn't release the hold. Earlier in the match, we saw the figure four around the ring post, which was very innovative at the time, something that Bret Hart doesn't get enough credit for because people still use it today. And his knee is giving out. He's already wearing a brace. and now he's pouring blood out. Just an iconic photo of himself as he's pushing out of the sharpshooter, and blood's coming down his face and through his mouth and his teeth. And then he doesn't respond to Ken Shamrock when he's asking, if you don't tell me no, I'm going to stop the fight. He doesn't respond. Ken rings the bell. Brett's a little reluctant to break the hold. A few seconds later, Brett starts attacking the unconscious Austin again, kicking him in the leg. And eventually Shamrock has to belly to back suplex him off. And the double turn is complete. So Austin eventually comes to. A referee tries to console him or help him. He gives the referee a stunner. He leaves to Austin chants. Meanwhile, Brett is walking down the aisle, flipping off fans, saying fuck you to them. So we have a complete double turn with a crybaby Bret Hart and a badass heel who is too cool for school, who's now a badass babyface, and Steve Austin. Is this the best double turn ever?
I think so. Yeah, without a doubt. The story told by these guys, the match laid out, with Brett. Brett's a master of painting a picture in the ring. And as you said, the picture that he painted was he was going to isolate that leg and isolate that knee and hurt Steve. And Steve's selling was off the Chizard. It's incredible. But the story that they told, and they got everybody over. But there was one key thing, and I mentioned this when we first started this podcast about Chris Jericho and what made Chris Jericho such a great heel were the nuances. If you go back and you watch this at the very end, when after Shamrock pulls Brett off and Brett starts to come into Shamrock, Brett just suddenly takes that one step back.
Yep.
Away from, showing that respect to Shamrock. And right there, everything that you had done up until that point, that made your heel because he backed up.
Yep.
And he was a chicken shit for that second. And if you weren't sure up until that point, that was the one little subtlety that Brett did that took you over the edge. You go, no, Brett, come on, not my Brett. And he took you the rest of the way. And that, to me, is just the art of the business that I love so much.
The Observer wrote, an incredible brawl from bell to bell with psychology and timing, the likes of which you'll only see when the best go against each other. He also says, this is one we'll remember for a long time, and gives it 5 stars. I can't.
Would have been 6 stars if it was in the Tokyo Dome.
I love you for that. I love this match. I think it's one of the best matches ever. Certainly at the top of my list. I can't recommend it enough. You need to go out of your way to watch this. If you've never seen it, if you've seen it 1,000 times, go fucking watch it again. It'll remind you why you're a fan. Next up, we've got the Legion of Doom. Road Warrior Hawk and Road Warrior Animal taking on, they're with Ahmed Johnson. He's there too. Taking on the Nation of Domination, Farouk, Crush, and Savio Vega. They are seconded by Wolfie D, JCI, Steelo Brown, Clarence Mason, and a host of others. So let's kind of set the stage here. As we remember from the Royal Rumble 97, Ahmed Johnson had already been feuding with Farouk. There was a famous bit in that match where there was a 2x4 that was involved. We'll see that 2x4 a little later in this match as well. But the Legion of Doom returned to the company in February of 97, coming back on Raw to beat the Headbangers at the Manhattan Center in New York City. Kind of catch me up, Bruce. How did this deal come together to bring the LOD back in?
God damn it, we're going to be in Chicago. Let's bring the LOD in. That was the conversation. I reached out. I think I reached out to Joe first and got him on the phone with Vince, and we came up with a quick deal. At first, I don't know that Vince was really interested in bringing them in for a long-term deal, but he had a vision of Chicago and thought Legion of Doom in Chicago in a Chicago street fight at WrestleMania would be cool, and kind of see where their heads were and whether or not he wanted to do something beyond that.
Well, when you made this call, were you head of talent relations here, or why did you make the call?
I believe I was, yeah.
So if Johnny Ace was the head of talent relations and he needed to make a quick deal to save some money on his mortgage, what might that sound like?
Hey, Conrad, how much can I save? My credit's not that good.
Well, you don't need perfect credit, Johnny Ace. I mean, First Family can help families who need a second chance. We're the home of the second chance refinance. So even if you've been turned down before, Johnny, we can still hook you up. You don't need your skateboard.
Huh? What kind of rate y'all got over there?
Well, the rates are pretty dynamic, dude. I got to tell you, we're going to be able to get you a better rate, show you how to skip a couple of house payments, even get rid of your credit card debt.
Well, I was just going to say, I got a lot of that. Is there any way? By the way, hey, Conrad, did I tell you your beard looks really nice today?
Well,
God, you're sexy. I need to save some money. I don't know what to do.
Well, Johnny, that's simple. All you've got to do is go to onefmc.com, fill out the quick quote form there, and we can even show you how to skip a couple of house payments.
I could do that.
Absolutely, man. No house payments for 2 months. Get rid of your credit card debt, get a lower interest rate, and of course, get a cheaper monthly payment. And First Family Mortgage can make it happen right now, Johnny.
Well, Conrad, thank you. You're great. By the way, did I mention how nice your beard looks today?
Well, you did, Johnny, but that's the end of our mortgage commercial here for First Family. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Have a nice day, Johnny.
I will. I'm going to save money at onefmc.com. Cool, dude. Cowabunga.
Oh, fuck, I'm banned. Okay, so we've got the Road Warriors here, and we're taking on the Nation of Domination. Prior to the match, we see Farouk and everybody else from the Nation in the back being interviewed, and he makes it a point to have Pettengill say, "You're bringing everything but the kitchen sink, right?" And Farouk says, "Who said I'm not bringing the kitchen sink?" And then, of course, on the way to the ring, we see Vince McMahon or Jim Ross say, "Man, they've got all the weapons but the kitchen sink." And then, of course, Vince McMahon references the kitchen sink. And sure enough, when the Road Warriors come out, they have
the kitchen sink. Oh, my. Look at that, JR. They've got the kitchen sink right there.
Help me understand.
Yes, sir.
Why is everybody told to talk about the fucking kitchen sink?
Because they're bringing everything but the kitchen sink. But then they bring the kitchen sink.
Foul.
This is not a great match, but this is super fucking fun to watch. It's so clusterfuck great. But I've always wondered, we haven't talked about the Nation of Domination much on this show. Was there any pushback from the Black Panthers or any other sort of activist groups about the way they're presented here?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not that I think there were people that obviously drew that correlation, but I don't really remember. Obviously, you think, really, Bruce? Well, yeah, actually, there were some that kind of drew that correlation there a little bit, folks. But no, not that I can really remember. There were people that felt it was racist and all that other good shit that goes along with it. But when you've got an attorney like Clarence Mason, then you kind of have all those bases covered. But if you need a really good attorney, of course, we know where to go, and you go to our good friends at rgt4law.com.
Did you know there are billions of dollars set aside for asbestos victims and their families? If you or a loved one has been affected by mesothelioma or an asbestos-related cancer, you can call 855-748-4529 for a free consultation. That's 855-748-4529. Or visit rgtforlaw.com for more information. Robert Taylor, R.G. Taylor II, PC and Associates, Houston, Texas.
Okay, so one of the other things I've wanted to know about this for a while is there's lots of rumor and innuendo out there that the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal, were not necessarily tickled about putting Ahmed on the shoulder spikes, and supposedly he didn't want to give them back. Do you remember hearing anything about this?
I heard about that. Yeah, I don't know if he didn't want to give them back. I think he just took them. And I want to say that Joe had them made for him so that he could come out with the shoulder spikes, and they could all come out, you know, looking like the Legion of Doom in Chicago with the spikes and everything. But the rumor was that Ahmed took them home and just didn't bring them back. So I don't know if that's true or not. My old age, I think the booking committee knows.
Let me just throw this out there. Fuck you for that, by the way. If you're listening and you have a pair of Road Warrior shoulder pads you're looking to dump, hit me up on Twitter. Hey, it's Conrad. Especially you, Mr. Ahmed Johnson, Tony Norris, if you're listening. So
Hell, Joe will probably make you some.
All right.
Send it to you.
Colt Cabana is in the crowd here. Did you find him?
I must miss that.
So when they're fighting down the aisle, Colt Cabana is in the crowd wearing an ECF&W shirt, and he's talked about it a little bit in the past. Do you remember ever hearing that he was here at this show in the same way that Edge was at WrestleMania 6?
Absolutely not.
Huh. Scale of 1 to 10. How fucking bad was Ahmed Johnson?
Ahmed was at about a solid 3.5. But he looked good.
He did look good. What would you call the pads he wore around his thighs? What did you call them?
Thigh pads?
No.
No, what would I call them?
I don't know, motherfucker. This is the part where you're entertaining.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Great googly moogly. No?
Okay, Courtney.
What the hell? I don't know. Man, and not only that, but he also wore the elbow pads up around his damn triceps.
How would Jim Cornette describe that to somebody?
God damn, I don't get it. He fucking had knee pads, but there were goddamn thigh pads up around his goddamn dick. But then he fucking took the goddamn elbow pads that should have been fucking knee pads, put them on his goddamn arms. But his fucking tricep was on the side of his goddamn arm. I don't know what the fuck. Motherfucker. Double meat, double cheese, extra onion, double mayo, motherfucker. You know, I'm sorry, sidebar. I've been on the phone a lot with Corny this week, discussing our friend Jim Ross, and in the middle of one of our calls, it was highly emotional, and just to kind of break it for a minute, we weren't really saying much, and I just all of a sudden went into, God damn, motherfucker, give me a double cheeseburger, extra onion, extra mayonnaise, motherfucker.
Foul mouth Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, and we were good, you know. Everything got back on track at that point. And he's like, well, I gotta go now, motherfucker. I got people coming into town. I gotta drive to Orlando. I ain't gonna get on a goddamn death tube. Fuck that shit.
So at one point in the match, Hawk swings a 2x4, and it bounces off the ropes and goes flying. And you hear Vince's butthole pucker live on the air, and he says, "Nice catch, Hawk." How panicked do you think Vince was when that fucking 2x4 just goes flying?
Dude, his butthole wasn't nearly as panicked as when Hawk grabbed the wrong goddamn fire extinguisher. Not just once, not just twice, but 3 fucking times until they found the correct fire extinguisher. And the only reason that they found the correct fire extinguisher is because we had to have stagehands crawl along the back of the ring and take the fire extinguishers that they were using that were there for pyro purposes. And so they had nothing else to grab except for the right one. But yeah, he grabbed the goddamn one with the chemicals in it, the powder chemicals in it that just is impossible to breathe, and was spraying people in the face and people at ringside with the damn thing. Now, for those of you that don't know, there are several different types of fire extinguishers. There's a fire extinguisher that has a dry chemical in it, which is what they used. And then there is also a CO2 fire extinguisher, which is what they were supposed to use, which basically shoots Freon. And it's cold when it hits you, but it doesn't really do any harm to your lungs or your eyes or anything like that. But yeah, 3 times they shot off the wrong fire extinguisher.
Yeah, it goes nuts off camera at one point, and then right in front of the announcers, and JR says something like, "Hell of a place to sit if you got asthma," and starts coughing.
Yeah.
Is Vince pressing the kind of the dump button and motherfucking you guys in the back when this is happening?
Oh, God, I don't remember because I was motherfucking everybody in the back and just going, how in the fuck did we have the wrong goddamn fire extinguishers down there? And that's when I found out that we have to have those kind of fire extinguishers under the ring for pyro purposes. But the guys just went to the wrong corner where the right fire extinguishers were.
After they sprayed it, they didn't notice the difference?
Thank you. Thank you. You would think they would notice the big puff of chemicals coming out and the instant need to draw a deep breath that wasn't coming, and you're choking and vomiting and eyes watering and everything else. Yeah. 3, not just once, not just twice, 3 times.
Does nobody think better of using a noose here?
Oh.
I mean, this does not age well, and we should mention it because we get asked about it all the time. One of the most famous noose angles of all time involved 2.
Boss Man.
And your brother.
Taker.
Your brother.
That one in Continental? Yeah.
So just briefly tell everybody about that so they can go find it on their Google machines.
Well, it was Dr. Tom Prichard and the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony in Continental Championship Wrestling. And Dirty White Boy put a noose around my brother's neck and drug him to the ring by the rope and then hung him in the corner. And actually hung him to where he was losing consciousness and actually choking. And that aired in Alabama.
Montgomery and all that.
Yeah. So that's a famous one. Of course, we had the which came later, which came after this, was the hanging with Boss Man. But watching this event 20 years later in 2017 and seeing a noose around the neck of Ahmed Johnson,
around a black man, yeah,
yes, and Farouk was just shocking. It was like, what in the hell were we thinking?
I mean, how does that happen? Because it's not like slavery was okay in 97, you know. Burning crosses was cool in 96. Like, that was so far removed by then, but yet somehow it didn't seem like it was nearly as big of a deal as it does now. What do you think's the cause of that?
I think that guys went into business for themselves, and I think that someone probably convinced someone else that a black man putting a noose around another black man's okay. I just don't see you using a hangman's noose okay, no matter what color anyone is.
But especially if you're a black man.
Especially, you know, 2 fat white guys talking about, you know, what's bad. That's bad, folks. That's bad. Okay?
2 fat white guys from the South are like, whoa, hold on.
Whoa. Yeah.
Too far, goddammit. Oh, gosh.
You got the fat white guy in Alabama and the fat white guy in Texas, and we're both going, no good. Nope. Abort. Danger, Will Robinson. Let's do something else. Yeah. Oh, my God. It was fucking horrible, man.
Let's talk about my favorite spot in the match. It's the pile driver from Road Warrior Animal on Farouk on top of the table.
You mean the kneel down and jump off the table? What the fuck was that?
Well, I feel bad for him because you know that. I mean, how many times has Animal given a pile driver? 1,000? I mean, just the worst possible fucking luck and timing and positioning. And the camera's just can't
It's
wait.
right there for it.
Yeah.
Hang on. Whatever you do, Kerwin, don't cut away like you do every time. You know what? If we wanted him to cut away to miss something, he would. Well, I don't know. I love Kerwin. I'm not going to bust
In this particular match, though, you got to admit, the fucking production is awful. You miss so much of what's going on. And I know there's a lot going on, and it's a tough task. But holy shit, this seems like unusually bad. They were normally on top of it, but here, it's a miss.
Well, there was so many guys. That's why I say that I really believe that guys went into business for themselves a lot in this match and just were doing shit all over the place. And you talk about the pile driver on the table. The other big part of that wasn't even a regular table. Those were skinny tables.
Yeah.
So you throw a 300-pound guy like Animal up there. Now you shorten his stance.
Yep.
And you stick another guy's head in between his legs, and he's going to try and do a pile driver. It was disaster written all over it.
One of the things that stuck out to me in this was, and they missed it the first time, they had to show it on replay, but the bump from Farouk from the second rope to the floor where he just lands on his hip.
Oh,
I've never seen him take a bump like that before, and I hope nobody does again. That was unnecessary.
yeah, I know, and it hurt me watching it. Just looking at it again, I was like, "Oh my god!" And he hits solid and just stays there, doesn't move.
Towards the end of the match, seemingly everyone's kind of out of position, and PG hands Ahmed the 2x4, so he's their opponent, and of course they pretend like they're going to hit him with it, and he just takes it. But in execution, the way it's shot, it looks like, "Hey, Ahmed, here's the 2x4. And then they use this 2x4 and run it into Crush, and that's the pin.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Mercy killing.
And it's worth mentioning that the Observer notes, the Road Warriors Chicago Street Fight was a better version of the same match WCW tried the previous week. Similar to the Harlem Heat Public Enemy match the previous week, but better since it was kept shorter and with better psychology. 3.5 stars.
So he gives that one 3.5 stars and gives Hunter and Goldust 2.5. Please,
you got it.
Yeah, it was. You know, the other unsung heroes of the match were, first of all, PG-13 and their rap and introduction in the very beginning.
Yeah, and
I love.
Here's what I don't get about that. They did a fine job with the rap because. You wouldn't expect it to be good, but it was actually pretty decent for, wrestling standards and what they were trying to accomplish. But Vince McMahon and the commentators were talking all over it the whole time.
Oh, that shit would drive me nuts. And today, Vince would be yelling, lay out. But on top of that, the bumps that those guys took throughout the match to just, it distract and divert and bring people's attention elsewhere. And D'Lo Brown was another one who was bumping his ass off and putting people in position on the outside of the ring all throughout that match, getting his ass whooped. And then at the very end, PG-13 go up for the finish, and you got Animal holding up Jamie, and poor Wolfie is being held up by Ahmed. And Hawk comes off with the double clothesline for both of those guys to do the flip. Of course, Animal gives Jamie the nice boost, and Jamie takes the big over and under bump. And then there's poor Wolfie doing everything that he can to get over. And Ahmed doesn't give him any help. And Wolfie just comes crashing down on his shoulder, and I just was like, ouch, those poor kids. I feel sorry for them.
You got any good PG-13 stories? It feels like these guys would have been a good time. I can't imagine you don't have a Jamie Dundee story.
Oh my God! You know what? They were fine. I remember a meltdown somewhere in upstate New York where they got all upset, and Shawn Michaels of all people went out and calmed them down and got them to chill a little bit. But they were upset at something. But they were brought in. They were brought in as a favor. Lawler had suggested bringing them in. We were looking for a couple of guys to put in the nation. Let's try these guys out. It was never a long-term deal. It was just, let's bring them in and see how they do. But, yeah, they were, I enjoyed the fuck out of their stick, man. They were good. They were entertaining little bastards. And they're not little. Jamie's smaller than Wolfie. Wolfie's, good sized guy.
I found it interesting here that on this show, they ran a commercial, or I guess just a graphic and an announcement for WrestleMania 14 for 1998, and that it's going to be in Boston at the Fleet Center. But then Vince immediately makes the announcement, tickets are not on sale. Please do not attempt to buy tickets. How fucking weird is that? I'm sure it stuck out to you too.
Yeah, because trying to think where the hell it was. There was an issue. We would always announce at WrestleMania where we were going to be the next year. And there was an issue one year that people were calling for tickets a year in advance. And they just didn't feel that was good. So they felt, well, make sure that you say that tickets are not on sale. I have that written down too. It was just strange. Hey, we're going to be here, but folks, do not buy tickets yet because they're not on sale yet. And he learned his lesson there, learned to put those damn things on sale a year in advance.
Strange. They're also something that everybody has pointed, not everybody, a lot of people have wanted me to ask about. There's a sign in the crowd. Do you remember what sign I'm going to mention here?
Which one? Vince is God?
No, it's pretty creative. It's
Go ahead.
moving scissors, where one blade says Sid and one blade says Arn, and the scissors open and close.
How the hell did I miss that?
How did the WWF not take that?
Well, hell, I watched it again and I missed it too. So I don't know. Probably didn't see it.
Well, pretty fun sign. Next up, we see Shawn come out to the ring, and he makes a whole victory lap around the ring. And I got the impression that was not exactly what the plan was, because when he passes McMahon, he says something like, "Not yet, right?" And then you kind of see Shawn power through the second half of his lap and then start to climb the steps. And he looks over his shoulder to make sure that Vince can't see him. He outstretches his coat. He looks down and flashes the click symbol. The next night on Nitro, Kevin Nash gets right up in the camera and does the click sign right into the camera and says, "Right back at you, HBK." Was there any sort of pushback about Shawn taking extra time, kind of hamming it up for the crowd when he was coming out, or his click sign to the camera, as far as you know?
No, and there were people the funny thing is, there were people that brought up the click sign. Oh, damn, he's doing that shit. And Vince's reaction to that was, well, it was their thing first here.
Yeah.
Reality was, it was Bret Hart's thing first there. But the other way of thinking about it was, okay, if it gets more people watching the shows, then great. But yeah, no, there was no big pushback there.
Let's talk about, before the match, I kind of forgot about this, that Bret comes down and starts talking smack to Shawn, Taker, and Sid, and gets a power bomb for his troubles from Sid. Isn't this a little unconventional for a WrestleMania main event? And you have it start with an angle like this?
Well, the whole WrestleMania was a little unconventional, and it was kind of happed together, and it was more of a launching pad WrestleMania than it was kind of a finality WrestleMania, if that makes sense. Where instead of things kind of coming to an end, we were using it to try and springboard things for the future, because so much of it was put together at the last minute. It was an attempt to continue to make Bret a heel. It was a way to give Sid an excuse and it just was serving so many fucking masters. Hindsight being 2020, not real fond of the finish for the main event just because of the chair shot with Sid. But I understood, obviously why we had to do what we had to do. And we were serving an awful lot of masters at that time, trying to just get through the damn thing and move on for the summer.
Was this the Undertaker's year by default?
It was, I wouldn't say default, but maybe you would, because it was, when you're looking at it, Vince wanted a babyface. He wanted a stalwart. He wanted somebody in that role that he could trust, that he felt he could depend on no matter what. And Undertaker was that guy.
So by default.
No,
well, here's what I mean. Like,
because there was really nobody else. We weren't ready for Austin. Yeah. I mean, it's sad to say that, but yeah.
WrestleMania 5 was about Hulk Hogan. WrestleMania 4 was about Macho Man. WrestleMania 6 was about the Ultimate Warrior. WrestleMania 13.
Yeah. Yep. It was last minute. Let's give them, what we can give them.
And it's kind of weird to me that at this point, Sid had main evented 2 WrestleManias. Undertaker never had. I mean, this is his first, but you know what I mean. How would you rate Sid's selling?
Selling in the ring?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not great.
A lot of people are critical of Sid and say that, he wasn't any good. He was terrible. He didn't deserve to be there. He didn't respect the business. His work isn't any good, yada, yada, yada. Where do you land on Sid?
I land on Sid as being a charismatic, promoing motherfucker that had a great body and a great look, and he drew money. You know what? People paid to see that big son of a bitch, and you believed him when he told you what he was going to do. His work was okay for a big man. And in the day of the big man, in the day of the Hulk Hogan era, where it was big man versus big man, and there wasn't that big of an emphasis on work. It wasn't that big of an emphasis on having that great match. It was about drawing people to the building and caring about the participants in the match. Sid was good for that. But he wasn't good for going out there and having what you would call your 5-star match. But he had that charisma, and people responded to him, and he could talk people into a building.
I was a fan of Sid. I enjoyed him here a great deal. At some point in the match, Brett comes back out and hits Sid with the chair like you talked about. And this happens twice. He hits him with the chair twice in the back, right in front of the referee, and it's not a DQ. Help me understand.
Well, they said that at the very beginning of the match, that the match was no holds barred, no DQ match.
But that wasn't ever marketed that way, right?
No, it wasn't. It was done that night, and it was a way to be able to do all the bullshit that they did. But they did announce it at the very beginning of the match.
The notes from Meltzer say they've done an incredible job this year destroying the credibility of the title with all the run-ins and screw jobs in every title match, which probably explains why the title means so little in TV ratings. 1.25 stars. He also writes, they sunk to WCW levels for a main event by putting Undertaker in with Cycle Sid, ending with the Undertaker capturing the WWF title for a second time, the 5th WWF title change already in 1997. So by the end of March, 5 title changes.
Yeah, not by design, but it was what it was.
Well, the match itself I thought was okay for what it was. I did think it went a little long. I thought Sid took the tombstone like a fucking champ, and they got a big pop for the Undertaker and his win. And even Shawn on commentary says that not everybody who's held that title has deserved it, but this man deserves it. I'm curious, because people are fascinated by The Undertaker and his role as a locker room leader, and he just seems too cool for school, and he gargles Jack Daniels, and, is the judge in the wrestler's court and the enforcer when things go sideways, yada, yada, yada. Does he give a shit that he's the world champion here?
I think he looked at it as an opportunity to be the leader and in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. He was looking at it as a challenge to be the guy and felt that Undertaker felt that he wanted that challenge of being the guy in front of the camera and being the champion and being the one everything was built around. So it was a way to kind of not be the gimmick guy, not be the attraction, but be the champ and be the guy. That's me reading into it, and that was a part of it. And I know from Vince's standpoint, it was let's do something with a guy that we know that we have, that we're not going to have to worry about them losing their smile or getting pissed off or anything else or doing something crazy.
It's worth mentioning that The Undertaker would hold the belt here 133 days before he lost it at SummerSlam 97 to Bret Hart. In that match, Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. Along the way, he had matches against Mankind, Steve Austin, Farouk, and Vader. But here we are, WrestleMania 13. Something else that a lot of fans online want to know, and we get this question a lot, is about the super fans who are around a lot at the time, who have been nicknamed Vladimir and Howard Stern fan. Do you know anything about Howard Stern fan, Vladimir, or a guy that at the time fans who traveled referred to as the Eagle, but on Reddit he's known as Bowl Cut Kid, which is a heavy-set kid with a bowl cut who every time the camera's in front of his face makes a face like he's screaming, ah! Any memory of any of these fans or anything you can share with us as to how they got fucking tickets to every event?
We used to ask the exact same question. Vladimir and those guys, Vlad was a built guy, had a good build, and then the Howard Stern guy is a guy that kind of looked a little bit like Charles Manson. Bowl cut, that's funny. I remember all three of those guys. But we we used to ask, how in the hell do they always get the best seats? I said, well, Vince, they obviously know somebody. But the extent of talking to them would be kind of around the ring and, hey, how are you guys doing? And they would just cheer and come up and tell us great show and we love you guys. They were everywhere. I want to know if anybody knows this out there. I want to know what the hell these guys did for a living that they were able to make all these pay-per-views all across the country and get those seats and how the hell they got them. So that's a question for our universe, for our listeners to try and find that out for us.
Couple quick questions too I want to kind of run through. Do you know why The Undertaker went back to gray here as opposed to purple, which he had been doing in recent years?
No, probably just to be different. Probably just go old school.
At this point, a lot of people may not remember the timeline here, but the curtain call happens in May of 96. That changes the way the King of the Ring is supposed to go. And instead of it being Hunter, it's Steve Austin. And now fast forward, here we are at WrestleMania a year later. At this point, do you think all the heat was off of Hunter for the curtain call, or was he still dealing with some of that?
No, he had paid his dues and had, done all of his punishments and got out of the doghouse.
The night before were the 1997 Slammy Awards, which I really enjoyed because as a Ute, that swimsuit competition was on time. And there is a Daily Motion video out there if you'd like to throw that in your Google machine, Slammy 97 swimsuit competition. But the reason I want to mention this specifically is there's a line in here that Hunter uses when he's on stage that he says something like, Sonny's only good for one thing, and my best friend says she's not even that good at that. He's saying this with Tammy sitting right next to Chris Candido, who's still with the company at the time. Help me understand.
Well, I believe we were live, first of all, right? On USA or wherever the hell we were. We were live on USA. And that was them being the smart-ass guys and going into business for themselves.
Any sort of punishment or just...
I didn't punish him. I didn't talk to him about it. I don't know if anybody did or not. I believe that was Chicago. We were like at a Marriott or something.
That's right.
Yeah, and that was the one where Undertaker and I sat back at gorilla position and drank the entire night.
It might actually... Candido may not have been signed at the time. He may have already been with ECW, but either way... do you remember who and how the new Blackjacks get broken up? Did the guys enjoy it, or did Vince not like it?
No, the guys enjoyed it. I just think that it was kind of time, and everything runs its course. It wasn't getting over for whatever reason, just because I think maybe people thought it was a nostalgia act, but just some things just don't hit. It didn't hit. If
you wouldn't have done Undertaker in the main event when you were kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what you could put together, who would it have been if not Undertaker?
Might have been Steve Austin a year early.
Wow. That brings a great question. You know, why wouldn't you just put Austin and Brett in the main event? It seems like that's what everybody wanted to see.
I think, well, I'll give you that answer. And the reason is that Vince at that time did see something in Austin and was really feeling something with Austin, but he wanted it to play out and he wanted that build. I'm not sure that he saw everything that he got until really that night with Tyson. I mean, we saw, man, that Austin build is one just unique motherfucking build that happened right underneath your nose, and there was no denying it. And then all of a sudden, it was pedal to the metal.
When do you remember Austin being like Vince saying, "This is the guy. I'm not trying it anymore. I know this is the guy"? Did he know after WrestleMania 13, or was there another show in particular?
He knew at 13. I dare say he probably knew at Survivor Series the year before. The stuff that Austin did, which I've talked about on this show before, behind the chain link fence and with the dogs barking, "Hey, Brett, I got," and all that. That was where everybody all of a sudden turned their head and said, "Oh shit, we got something here."
Do you know if the original plan before everything got changed with Shawn was Bulldog versus Austin?
I really don't know. I don't remember. It's again, and to explain that, when shit changes and you've got to go in and you've got to change everything, you have to erase what you had planned. You really have to force yourself to get that out of your head, because if you don't, you continually hit a wall saying, "Well, goddamn, we had this planned." You have to get to a place where you just forget it all. And you have to look at a blank piece of paper and say, "We had nothing planned. This is our first day on the job. And you just have to move forward and forget what the hell you might have had planned. And it's a mindset, and it's something that if you can't do it, you're going to be doomed to just say, "Well, what if?"
Was there ever a plan to involve ECW at any level on the pay-per-view? Because you guys had just started working with them and letting them on Raw and promote their pay-per-view and blah, blah, blah. You're in Chicago. You're You're starting to cuss a little bit. You're using Beautiful People by Marilyn Manson. You're using more weapons. Why not try to involve ECW a little bit here?
Well, I don't think Paul wanted to be involved. I can't answer that. I don't know. I just don't know that it was ever something that we considered.
Any sort of pushback you remember about Ahmed being in the noose or any of the Uncle Tom stuff and Ahmed Farouk stuff y'all were doing at the time?
No, and I had forgotten all about that until I watched it, and it just, again, the horror of watching it. It was like, holy shit. Still today, I know it was 20 years ago, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that the people in the match or that anybody thought that was a good idea. Just dumbfounds me.
Let's address the rumor and innuendo, shall we?
Sure.
That Sid shit his pants.
You know, I don't check guys' pants when they come back through Gorilla. So I have no idea if he did or not.
God damn.
I saw that online, and there were several people that said, no, he did it at a house show weeks before that. I don't know. He's wearing black pants. How would I know if he shit his pants?
Hypothetically, if he shit his pants and there was a brown spot on his black trunks, when he walks through the curtain back in Gorilla and Vince is sitting waiting for him, what's that sound like?
What's that smell?
Something like that?
Something like that.
If it's volleyball season, no, not volleyball. I said volleyball. If it's softball season, who the hell knows?
Do you remember Austin being nervous about zipping himself?
Well, first of all, no one knew that anybody was zipping anybody.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean? No one knew they were getting color.
Bruce, are you paying attention?
To what?
We just did a fucking 3-hour show about the goddamn thing. We talked about how great the match is. You didn't think it would have been useful to fucking throw that tidbit of information in when we're talking about the goddamn
Well, you
match?
had all the goddamn answers. You're talking about Steve in his book and all the other shit. But yeah, no, they did not have approval to get color in the match, and no one knew.
Are you fucking ribbing me?
No, I'm not ribbing you.
Help me.
Vince was livid, and Vince wasn't only livid at the fact that they got color without permission. He was livid at the fact that they fucked up the mat for the rest of the show.
And they shot the shit out of it.
Yeah, they did. They even shot the pool of blood at the end of the night.
So
yeah, he was livid
if he's against it, why are they doing all that?
because they thought it would add to the match.
Who's they?
Brett and Steve.
Brett and Steve were holding cameras.
Oh, no. Why they shot it? I guess that they thought that it was all part of it. But no, Vince didn't know. I didn't know.
So what's Bret Hart's deal with blading without permission at WrestleMania? He did it at WrestleMania 8. Now he's doing it at WrestleMania 13.
He felt that the match needed it. That was just something that he did. And Vince was pissed off about it and talked to him about it. I don't know what else he did about it. But no, I didn't know. Vince didn't know. The agent didn't know. But Vince was pissed. Vince was pissed on a lot of different levels. Not knowing they were going to do it and fucking up the mat.
Because the match is so good, do they get a pass or are they fined? Do you remember?
Vince talked about finding him, but Vince handled it. Vince dealt with both guys, and he was not happy. He was pretty livid. I mean, he chewed all our asses out like we knew, and we're all looking at each other. Nobody knew. We thought, watching it live, that it was the hard way.
How did you think Shawn did as a commentator in the main event?
I thought, I don't know. I thought they didn't need it. They put him out there to get star power and get Shawn on the show.
Was there any sort of conversation with Mr. Perfect about coming back for WrestleMania 13 in the days leading up to it?
No. There was talk in that time frame about Kurt coming back, but not for WrestleMania 13, no.
When would he have been trying to come back?
At that time, it was just whether or not he could come back to the ring at all. And there was just discussions in general of whether or not he wanted to come back.
If you had to
There was just preliminary conversations about, hey, do you want to work? You want to get in the ring again?
What's the thinking in putting Honky Tonk Man on TV in such a big role in 1997? Doesn't this seem even more out of place in hindsight than it did at the time?
He's the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. Honky Tonk Man was over, and Honky Tonk Man drew. And so he was a big star. So it was a way to just, again, add star power, little nostalgia to the show, and see the Honky Tonk Man.
You think he was really over in 1997?
Maybe not in 1997, but he was over at one time. It was a nostalgia deal. It was hey, let's get Honky Tonk Man out there.
Newspapers were over once upon a time, too.
Still in 1997, they were over.
Anything else you can think of that you'd like for us to cover or address for WrestleMania 13?
No, I think we covered it all, by God. I thought we got a lot more out of it than I thought we would.
Real quick, I've always kind of been curious about this, because even when I put it on the poll, somebody tried to take me to task and said, okay, who doesn't know how to do Roman numerals for 13? But this was the first WrestleMania where there weren't Roman numerals. Why was that?
You know, the funny thing was this was one that Vince didn't want to do Roman numerals and wanted to stop the Roman numerals at 13.
And they were back the next year.
Like
even the graphic for WrestleMania 14 on WrestleMania 13 has it in Roman numerals.
Thank you very much. He was like, people don't know Roman numerals. Just do numbers. And then the very next logo is XIV. I'm like, goddamn, people. It would amaze me some of the mandates that would come down and never use this word again 2 weeks later. And then it was always the same shit.
Chat me up. Tell me about something else we missed in WrestleMania, since you were going to let me go the whole show and not tell me that they didn't get permission to blade.
No, I wasn't going to let you go the whole show. I wanted to give our listeners a reason to stay to the very end when they get those little tidbits, but by God, they don't expect.
Well, what you're not expecting is for us to kind of upset the apple cart. We're going against the grain, fellas. We're going to do something we don't normally do. We're not giving you a poll this week. I know. Well, here's the deal. Let me just give you a peek behind the curtain. We're going to Orlando early. As we're taping this, it's after midnight. It's technically Friday morning. We will not have an opportunity to do this next week because we'll both be in Orlando. And I need a little bit of time to do some research. So in order for us to give you the kind of show that you want next Friday, we've just got to pick one for you. And if you wanted to place a bet as to what we were going to talk about next week, Bruce, how would we do that?
Well, you can go to our returning and very loyal sponsor, BetWrestling.com, because they're the premier destination for gambling real money on WrestleMania and all of the WWE special events. I mean, everybody thinks wrestling's predictable, right? You all think you can pick the winners and the losers. Well, put your money where your mouth is. And there's so many people that are enhancing their experience. They're on the edge of their seats when they bet even as little as 50 cents. That's all you got to bet to experience this at BetWrestling.com. But if you don't want to play with real money, you can enter a free giveaway by selecting the winner of the Box of Gimmicks Rumble. And you can actually win a box of gimmicks with 2 Something to Wrestle With t-shirts of your choice and other surprises. All you got to do for more information is go to betwrestling.com/Bruce to enter instantly and enhance your WrestleMania experience with betwrestling.com/Bruce.
Well, I know what you can bet on to win next week, and that's the man that WrestleMania was built around, Hulk Hogan, brother. That's our topic next week. We're going to cover what happened when Hulkamania ran wild on the World Wrestling Federation. And of course, Hogan did it all and he was there forever. So we won't get everything in, but we'll certainly get some of the early years of Hulkamania and when Bruce was there. It's worth mentioning, Bruce was not there for WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, or WrestleMania 3. But he was there right after. So next week, tune in. We're going to cover the first couple of years of Hulkamania when Bruce was there. We'll carry you through WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5, and we're going to have a good time doing it. Next week, right here, it's all things Hulkamania, brother. We'll see you next week at Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard.
The world of